first of all, thanks a lot for coming on. I can't thank you enough. I really appreciate it. It was important to have you on for a multitude of reasons, but the number one thing that always stands out to everybody is you were the guy who you had a lot of help, but ultimately you were the guy that finalized or created the flashing crest, the one we know today. Maybe let's start there. Let's talk about because I know a lot of people think a lot of the new guys might not know this, but it was kind of like you just wore whatever. I mean, wasn't it kind of something like that? Like maybe jump wings, maybe a tack pin, or yeah. So talk me through that. Talk me through what you guys used to wear, and then how the new flashing crest came about. And then we'll back up and we'll talk about your career and stuff like that.
First and foremost, let me just say, JD, thank you so much for what you're doing. Capturing the history for the real legends in our career field. I got to admit, you're a little late. We lost Chief Fiscus. We lost Shorty Torres. We lost Joe Wachs. So, seriously, though, I say that facetiously about you being late. God bless you for what you're doing. Getting the history down is critical, and there's a lot to our history that is just unknown because there's no reason why they would know it unless they happen to have been around the people that were there and made the history. The guys like the three godfathers that created the 275 career field, out of nothing. The history of Romads going back into the Kasserine Pass and the four air controllers. Just amazing stuff all the way around. So
yeah.
As far as when we first started, I shouldn't say when we first started. I was in Falcon 3. So I graduated tech school December 1981. We'll get to all the chronology later. But at that time, we were authorized to wear the black beret, and then it was MAJCOM specific. And I gave a bunch of the paperwork on the history of the beret and the career field to one of the ALOs that's doing his doctoral thesis is on the history of our career field. And so meeting with the guys out at JT's ranch in Texas, I showed up with a whole bunch of gifts. I gave him a whole bunch of stuff that I had squirreled away forever. And that kind of stuff doesn't belong in somebody's closet. That kind of stuff belongs in some place where people can get a hold of it and read it and use it. So at the time, from 77 until, when I showed up in 81, we were authorized to wear the black beret. Supposed to wear a MAJCOM crest on your black beret, which made us look a whole hell of a lot like a security forces guy especially when, depending upon what batch they bought, some of those dark blue berets, the elite 144,000 security forces, those dark blue berets looked awfully damn black. So, at Bragg, we wore the jump wings. So, and I can't tell you for certain, what everybody else did, but at, Det 1 507 Tactical Air Control Wing, Fort Bragg, we had our jump wings on there, and the officers just had their rank. So there was a real lack of identity. So when you start getting into the why, so why is my favorite word. So I always want to know the history behind something. Why this? Why did it happen? And for us, you got to look at the culture of the time. We came from a post-Vietnam era. Many of our senior NCOs who had Vietnam War experience in either 304's combat control team. They got some of them forcibly shoved into the 275 career field when they didn't know what the hell that was. And those are the guys that brought us up. The people that went through the schoolhouse, a lot of them were folks that just weren't going to fit in any other career field. There was no place for them. I mean, I can still remember going to PT, walking out of the dorms and heading over to go do PT, and gentleman who shall remain nameless, he's finishing off a beer, and throws it into the trash can by the tennis courts as we go chugging over, and then he still out PTs the shit out of the rest of us. You know,
Right, right.
oh my God. And I'm thinking, I'm 18 years old going, what the hell have I gotten myself into? Um, and there was a definite, each detachment, I think, had their own culture. At Fort Bragg, it was not quite the land of the lawless, because we had guys like Chief Fiscus, Larry Fiscus, Master Sergeant Joe Wachs, um, Tech Sergeant Howard McNeil, Tech Sergeant, um, I'm going to start messing up names now, but guys that really did a very good job of giving us enough rope to hang ourselves, and then when we were swinging, they would come by, cut us down, and make sure that did you learn your lesson? Well, probably not. Okay, well, try not to do it again,
Right.
and off we go. So it really did not seem like we had much of an identity other than we were the Bragg guys. We were the 82nd.
Mm.
There was no support, direct support to the Special Forces guys. The legends like John McKay, Scotty, Robert Scott that supported the Rangers. Those guys, completely different world, right?
Right.
And we started doing things. They had been doing them, but when I showed up and I went to my first jump fest, for example, Shaw Air Force Base Tactical Air Control, 507 Tactical Air Control Wing hosted a jump competition, and all of the Air Force parachuting elements, other than the Air Force Academy, all showed up to compete. And it was a beer drinkers with a jumping problem convention, basically. So we spent the whole week jumping out of helicopters, and it was interesting to look at and see that you could tell the combat control guys, you could tell the pararescue guys, you could tell the survival school guys. The TACP guys, you mostly could tell because we weren't them, but
Right.
there wasn't a we were we. We were TACP. Are we TACP? Are we ROMADs? There was no such thing as an EFAC or an ETAC or a JTAC back then.
Mm-hmm.
One of the things that I think one of the first Genesis items that came from it was there was a discussion starting in about 83, I think, on some folks at the schoolhouse pushing to get a beret device. And everybody was going down the path of like pararescue and combat control, right? So they were the elite in the Air Force with the berets and devices, and they had set the path. And that's if they had already proven it, if they've already blazed that trail, well, when you're going through waist high snow, it's pretty stupid to create your own path when you can follow the path that's already laid before you. Joe Wachs came to me one afternoon, because every Friday afternoon was a beer bust, right? So we would scrub the crap out of the hangar, make sure all the vehicles were perfect, everything was put away, and then we would be given the green light, and somebody would go get cases of beer, and we'd hang around and just enjoy being us. Papa Joe came up and was like, because I couldn't help but draw. I had to draw and paint on things.
Okay.
That turned into painting jump helmets. Right, so whenever we would use our stark white motorcycle bell helmet to go on a fun jump, well, they were just these ugly stark white motorcycle helmets. And
Yeah.
I asked my supervisor, Jimmy Felton, like, "Hey Jimmy, can I paint my helmet?" Like, yes. Nobody's ever done it. Huh? So I painted my helmet was solid black with this flaming sword down the top of it, my name on the back, and I thought I was
Nice.
cool fit. And he was like, "Hey, can you do this?" So I started getting orders to paint people's helmets. So I had all kinds of fun with that, and there was a bunch of stuff that I painted and drew. I had a giant F-15 on the wall of my dorm room, so the entire wall next to my bed was basically an F-15 fighter coming at you.
Oh,
Um,
okay.
it was pretty cool. But Papa Joe came and said, "Hey, you need to take a crack at this creating a beret device." Like, no, I don't. He's like, "Yeah, you can do it. I know you can." And I was like, "Papa Joe, that's I've never done. Who's ever done anything like that? I've
Right.
never created something like that. I'm a sketch artist kind of a thing." So we talked about it some more, and he kept on me about it. And then we started talking about it. He's like, just do this. Come up with a couple of designs. Just bring me something. Sketch it out on paper. Like, okay. I bought him all kinds of stupid shit. I mean, just ridiculously bad stuff. Um, and again, I'm following the path that everybody else was, considering. You got that solid beret device for combat control, solid beret device for PJs. And the more I doodled with it, the more I looked at it, I go, this is not us. We're different. And if nothing else was key to our culture at the time, I would say that would be the one phrase that would absolutely describe the tactical air control parties of the early 80s. We were different. We were very different from PJs, combat control, from anybody. Nobody else was full-time, living with the Army and doing what they do, sometimes outdoing what they do. You look at the guys that excelled at Ranger School, like Dan Hannikin and Dwayne Fisher, and just amazing stuff that these guys did.
Yeah.
I don't want to look like PJs or combat control. I want to look like us. So I started a different path of coming up with just a crest, and I couldn't. Man, it was a nightmare. And when I said, it was a team that devised this thing, I started really getting into it, and it became an absolute obsession that I had to do this. I bugged Chief Viscos. I bugged Jim Brock was the other tech sergeant I was trying to think of. Jim Brock was such a great guy, and we would sit and talk at his desk. Gene Hoover, all these guys, that had good ideas, but it really was Papa Joe that I would just continue working with him, and he had me over to his house several times. We'd sit around. Nancy would, bring us beers. We'd sit at the kitchen table and talk about, do this, and finally, at one point, he was the one who said, well, form follows function. What do we do? The crest has to demonstrate what we do. So go find out, go list what we do, and then you figure out what represents that. And that's where heraldry came into it. So I literally sat there for the longest time. I had this piece of notebook paper. It's since gone away, but I had a yellow pad piece of paper, and I listed every single thing that a ROMAD does. Setting up landing zones, because I controlled a shitload of C-130s doing dirt landings at Bragg with our Talo. All the stuff that made us very different from pararescue or combat control. Doing the canister delivery drop up in Alaska, I did, controlled a shooting star that dropped a canister of maps and stuff to us. It was just weird stuff. So I listed all this stuff out, and it's like, okay, now that I got that, I need to find out about heraldry. So the base library sucked. The Fort Bragg library sucked. So I tried to get into the local college in Fayetteville, and Fayetteville State and Methodist College, I think it was. Methodist College, you're not a student, but you're a service member. If you get your first sergeant to sign, we'll give you a library card. Cool. Nice. So I went to Chief Viscos and got him to sign the letter, and I got my own little library card, which is actually how I wound up taking my first college class, but never mind that. But I got a book on heraldry. And I started going through and trying to find a heraldic symbol that matched all the stuff that we did. And some of the stuff came immediately, right? So when you're talking about firepower, raining death from above, warheads on foreheads, boom, sword, easy. I mean, that one came out so quick. Communications, Terry Bittner, the ALO, fantastic man. I remember him telling us, because I couldn't get our HF radio up, he's like, Monroe, if we don't have comms, we're just on a camping trip out here. And I'm thinking, holy shit, I mean, that's absolutely right. So if we couldn't reach back to the ASOC, if we couldn't make a request for reconnaissance, for airlift, for airstrike, whatever it was, we're just on a camping trip. So comm was huge. And I found that the lightning bolt. So I had like 8 or 9 symbols that were there, And I kept trying to put them together, and it was a puzzle that could not fit. It was driving me bat crap crazy, and it never worked. And we were at another Friday beer bust. I was waiting to talk to Papa Joe. One of our guys, Charlie Daniel, a super fantastic guy, had recently gotten into free fall, and Papa Joe was still a big free fall guy at the time. And the two of them were sitting there talking about about doing hops and tops somewhere. And Joe Locks was holding his helmet bag that had a embroidered U.S. Parachute Association emblem on it.
Okay.
Which basically is wings, right? And then the symbol, parachute in the middle of it. And I'm looking at his helmet bag, going, "That's it. That's it. I've got the wings, and now I can figure out some way that I can incorporate, the sword and the lightning bolt, and there was 2 or 3 other things that I wanted to try to figure out a way to get in there, but the only one that really fit perfectly was that omnidirectional star, and it literally fell into place that night, and I was so excited about it, and originally it was U.S. Parachute Association wings that went up and out. There was nothing on top. There was nothing. It was just literally the wings, the flash. I mean the sword, the lightning bolt, the omnidirectional star. That's all. And so I drew that up, and I was really proud of myself. And he came busting over, called, and went over to Papa Joe's house, showed it to him, and he's like, "That's never gonna fly." I was like, "This is perfect." He's like, "Nope."
What?
Pop my balloon, dude. And I said, "What?" He goes, "Who are we?" Right? There's got to be something that helps identify. It's not that we will identify with those things, but nobody else is going to know who we are. So in some way, shape, or form, you've got to be able to and that's where I started playing around with different ways to put in TACP, and I had all kinds of weird, goofy ideas, but eventually it became the symbol that you see today. And the one thing, and I think it was Jim Brock that I talked with about it, and he said, the only thing that's really missing is that you don't know who are we. And I said, well, yeah, you do. It says right there, TACP. He goes, yeah, but we're Air Force. And we never really, I'll be honest with you, at least speaking for myself, Army 1, we never really identified as Air Force.
Yeah.
It was almost like we were the runt of the litter that didn't like the Air Force because the Air Force didn't like us, right? So we're stuck out in an Army fort, and in the 80s, out of sight, out of mind. Yeah. I mean, truly, we led the life of Ryan because the 82nd Airborne, all of Fort Bragg said, "You're Air Force, you belong to Pope." Pope Air Force Base said, "You're Tactical Air Command, you don't belong to us, you belong down to Shaw." Yeah. Shaw said, "You belong to Fort Bragg." So we were truly out on our own and did our own thing. It was phenomenal. And it really kind of hit me that when we were talking about it, that it's hard to remember sometimes that without us being Air Force, we really do lose our identity. And the whole idea behind this thing is to come up with a way to identify the Tactical Air Control Party. We are an elite member of the United States Air Force, and we can't ever forget that without that top cover, and that's the top cover idea is what gave me the idea of creating that upper banner, that the U.S. Air Force is paramount. Everything else that happens is only because of the U.S. Air Force. Yeah. So all about our comms, the firepower, our ability to deploy globally, all of that comes down to we're members of the U.S. Air Force, proud members. And so that the flash, the crest itself was fairly well designed. Started working with this knucklehead at Shaw Air Force Base, a tech sergeant named Tom DeFrange, and smart guy. So I sent him a couple things. He was at the wing, and he said, "Okay, how are we going to wear it?" On your beret. What do you mean,
Yeah,
how are
right.
you? No. Just, what's the reg? Air Force Regulation 3510. What do you mean? No, you have to write the regulation that governs how we wear it. I said, the hell I do. I drew it. Somebody else has to do it.
Right.
I didn't say this. No. Said no. He said the easy part is over. And I'm
Yeah.
thinking, are you out of your freaking mind? This was been a long time coming, and there's nothing about it being easy.
Right. Yeah.
And he's like, no. Now the hard part is to get this thing approved. And if you don't hand them a perfect package, it's never going to get approved. So now I went back to going, holy crap, I've got to figure out how to write a supplement to the Tactical Air Command SUP to Air Force Reg 3510 on uniform wear for da da da. Oh man! And
Man.
long before the days of laptops and desktop computers
That's
and
exactly what I was just thinking. Like we're
yeah,
talking typewriters or by
type
hand or
writer.
oh man.
Yep.
God.
Here we go. So,
Yeah.
and man, you mess it up, and anyway, so just horrible. So I
Yeah.
wrote it out longhand 100 different times, and when I showed it to one of our ALOs, and I think it might have been Bob Autry, Cowboy. Um, he's like, well, so what's different for us? I said, you go for the officers. How I said, we guys still wear your rank. He goes, oh, okay, so you guys get to wear the cool crest.
Hmm.
We're TAC Air Control Party too. What about us? Shit, I hadn't thought about that.
Yeah.
And he said, kind of like special forces, why don't you have a cloth flash behind it? You already got a crest, just put a flash. And then, the support guys that aren't, ROMADs, they can wear the flash or the crest. I'm sorry, yeah, the cloth flash, but not the crest. And then the officers will wear the cloth flash and put their rank on it. But that's really a great idea. So I started playing with, how to come up with, what to do to design it, and that really came about from a lot of conversations with, anything that's on the flash or on the cloth flash has got to be visible through the crest.
Right.
So now the crest went from being just a solid piece of metal, which was the original idea, to now it's got to be cut out so that you can see behind. And by doing that, then we started looking at air, ground, what, and in the heraldic world, man, colors, everything has a meaning for everything. The shape,
Right.
the design, and when you're having to tell the Air Force Uniform Board, the Air Force Office of Heraldry gets involved. And you have to submit this to these guys that've got PhDs in this stuff. So I'm learning, terms like obtuse and, weird stuff. But having to realize, colors aren't colors. It's not red, right? So you have these different, names for colors because they are specific with a heraldic meaning to them.
Yeah.
So all that came about behind, okay, I've got to have a way to be able to differentiate between the support guys, radio maintenance, supply, be able to have the officers, do something with their rank. So that basis was the basis behind getting all of that done. Finally got it done. Everybody's in love with the damn thing. Papa Joe, it's kind of funny. If you have one of the original coins, when we really got behind this, Joe Locks, who's he's a strategic mastermind. You would never say that if you ever met the guy, but he really was. He thought a lot, and he thought all the time. And we were in a race with the schoolhouse. The schoolhouse went down the path of we're going to do the same design idea that CCT and PJs did, and they had a solid patch,
Okay.
a solid crest. So we went our route, they went their route. Papa Joe's going, we finally have the ability to get a coin. I mean, a career field coin. And he goes, hey, will you give me one of your drawings? I'll send it off to Korea and we'll get this made into a coin. It's like, are you kidding? This is going to be a coin? Like, yeah. And only officers had coins because they were the fighter pilots. Right? So we never had coins. So like, yeah, I reached into my bag and I had a folder that had a bunch of, and these were all originals. I had 15 or 20 originals all drawn up. And if you look at the original design, I'll send you a picture so you can see it. If you look at the original, that coin, my artist signature is Duke, because that was a family nickname growing up. Well, in the original TACP design or drawing, right at the basis of the crest, I have Duke in the year that I designed it.
Wow.
Well, Papa Joe sends that off to Korea. They don't know any better. So they literally take that whole picture to include my autograph, and that's what's on the coin.
Oh,
So
that's
if you put the
awesome.
magnifying glass and look at the original coin and look down beneath it, you'll see Duke 84 on it. So
Wow.
but Papa Joe
That's awesome.
he had the crest on one side, and when you flip the coin over, it's got the schoolhouse emblem that they were pushing forward. And you couldn't tell which side was front or back.
Oh,
So it was
okay.
really, he was perfect. Whoever won, he had the coin.
Uh,
So it was pretty neat. But we finally get it all done. We package it up, we send it off, and it dies. The whole package just went nowhere. So I'm reaching back to Tom DeFrange. He has no idea what happened to it. We try it again. It makes it to some place and winds up getting rejected. We never could get it beyond, if we ever got it beyond the wing, depending on who the wing commander was, then it would die either at 9th Air Force or somewhere in headquarters TAC before it ever made it to a uniform board. So super frustrating.
yeah.
Everything we've done, and this is going nowhere. There's no support for it on high. One of the criticisms about our community was that combat control and pararescue had professional officers that looked after these guys all the way up to headquarters air staff. And in the TACP world, you didn't have that, right? Our officers are
Right.
part time, and God forbid that you ever did this on a full time basis. That's the end of your flying career. Um,
Right. Right.
so we had nobody really advocating for us. Um, we worked hard to get Shorty Suarez, the Chief Master Sergeant that was in charge of the TACPs for all of Tactical Air Command. He got on board pretty quick with it. But again, if we can't get it to him at headquarters TAC, it'll never go anywhere. And the funny thing is, if anybody really wants to know who we owe a debt of gratitude for the TACP Flash and Crest, it was a very nice lady by the name of Jean Smart that ran the suggestion program for Pope Air Force Base. So I did something wrong, and I can't remember what it was, but I pissed off Joe. And so Papa Joe stuck me with being the suggestion program monitor.
Okay.
So I was like, that's the last damn thing. I do not need one more thing. And like, boom.
Right.
Hey, you have a suggestion program going, oh yeah, you got a meeting in 5 minutes. Get your ass over to Pope. So off I go. Meet the lady. She's a wonderful person. She's like my mom's age, so just a nice lady. Over the next year or so, I'm telling everybody when we have our monthly meetings, everything that's going on with this program and I was just so super frustrated one day. And Jean's like, so you don't even know who's rejecting it or why? And I said, no, ma'am. She said, okay, how about this? You're the suggestion program guy. Put it on an Air Force Form 1000. Make it a suggestion. I'm not improving anything. I'm not changing anything. She goes, oh, no. You are changing the uniform for tactical air control parties worldwide. You are improving your morale. You're improving. And she went down this whole long list. I'm like, that's brilliant.
Yeah.
So I typed it
It
up
is.
and I brought her the whole package and she helped and she helped correct things. That woman could probably type 100 words a minute. I swear to God. So she fixed everything, typed it all beautifully, and we submitted it. The beauty of that was, if somebody up the chain didn't like it, they had to provide a reason. They couldn't just throw it in the trash can. This was tracked, and from the minute this Air Force Form 1000 hit your desk, the clock was ticking, and you had a suspense or reply by date. And man, you did not want to get on the bad side of this lady. She was after you to find out what was going on where. So that's how it got all the way through, and finally up to Headquarters Tactical Air Command, where Shorty Suarez took it and personally walked it through, and then got it sent up to the Air Force Uniform Board where it was approved. Wow. I got a $500 check.
Right on.
Yeah. So with the airport, with the suggestion program, if they approve it and there's some merit to it, like, if you save the Air Force $10 million by creating this new widget, then you got a percentage of whatever the savings were. But since we didn't save anything or create anything monetarily, somebody at Air Staff had to come up with a monetary the improvement to the morale, $500. One of the funny things was when we finally got the final package together, I took the first form that outlined it all, and I put everybody's name on it. I mean, it said Chief Biscus and Papa Joe and Jim Brock and Howard McNeil and Gene Hoover. And when I submitted it, Chief Biscus called me up and was like, no, you take everybody else's name off this thing. I'm like, but, no, this was a team effort. This was, it's important that everybody gets. He goes, no, don't do it. And he said, I insist you take my name off of it. How about that? Like, well, okay. And every one of them, except for Gene Hoover, came to me and said, nope, take your name off. And Gene's like, hell yeah, I put my name on there. I love this thing. So if you ever go to the schoolhouse, up on the wall, I gave them all the originals. You'll see, I think it was Tech Sergeant Gene Hoover and A1C Mitchell A. Monroe on the original write-up of the history of the meaning of the flashing crest. But then when it came time for the Air Force suggestion program, they insisted I was the only one to put the name on it. So he came to me and said, hey, I heard you got $500. Where's my cut? I said, I'll buy you a beer.
It's just fascinating to hear that, because for years, I came in 91, and we had it then, and everybody just takes it for granted. We respect it and we like it, and it's awesome to wear, and it's great to get that awarded to you at tech school when you graduate. But you kind of take the whole design for granted, like the whole. And it's funny that you mentioned that part where you're like, it couldn't be a solid piece because it had to have the cutout so you can see the flash behind it, and and you don't even think about that kind of stuff when you're getting it sewn on your beret. You're just like, yeah, just throw it on there, and you're proud of it. And it's really that's an awesome story. It's fascinating to hear kind of how it all came about.
Well, the other fun thing is that when you go to the schoolhouse and you look at the original documents that are up on the wall, you'll see a note. There's a handwritten note about this big from a lady named Beth Unklesby. So long story to get there, but I'm selected to go to officer training school. I've left headquarters TAC. I'm on leave before I go to flight screening program, before I go to OTS. And I'm home, and wife and kids are down. We're down visiting my parents. My mom was the secretary for 9th Air Force. So I finished a run, come back, and my mom said, you just missed a call from the Pentagon. And I said, pretty sure I didn't. And she laughed. She goes, I'm pretty sure I know what the Pentagon is. I said, as in, and she goes, yeah, headquarters Air Force called. She said, well, here's the phone number. The lady wants you to call her back. So I call her back, and Captain Unklesby is at her desk. And so I identified myself, and she said, I just wanted to let you know that I'm sending you a box. Okay. Ma'am, what is this about? And she said, well, it's about the flashing crest. I said, oh, okay. Why are you sending me a box? She said, well, I'm cleaning out my desk. I'm separating from the Air Force. I'm cleaning out my desk. I was the member of the Air Force Uniform Board that this was my project. And when the first two boxes, a box of cloth flashes and a box of crests arrived, she was smart enough to open up each box, reach in blindly, pull out one of each, and said, "This is number one. This is the very first flash and crest ever accepted by the U.S. Air Force." And she put them together and put them in her desk. Intended to do something with them, who knows what. But she's cleaning out her desk, and she's got all the paperwork behind it, and she goes, "I bet I can find him." So she found somebody that tracked me down and said, "I'd like to send that to you." And I said, "That is unbelievable." So I'm thinking no one will ever believe this damn story. She wrote a note and said, basically said all kinds of nice things about the design, working with you, the whole project. Good luck with officer training school. Beth Unklesby, if you ever need anything, give me a call. And she wrote her cell phone note, the whole thing. So that note and the original flash and crest was, again, part of the stuff that I gave to the schoolhouse.
Wow.
So
that's awesome.
That's pretty cool.
How about that? It's amazing that she just kept it that long and was able to link up with you. Man, that's great.
To have the smart to be able to look at it and go, this is history. I'm holding history.
Yeah.
She got 2 boxes in the mail. Who's going to look at that and go, "Yeah, I got history in my hands"? And she was a smart lady. So
yeah,
I was very pleased. So
that's awesome. Yeah. Well, okay, so you kind of alluded to it. So speaking of the past and your parents and that kind of thing, they were military members as well. So let's go back. Tell me about, you said you were in the family business. Your mom and dad were in the military. Take me back to that point when you had to have your parents sign on the dotted line because you weren't 18 yet. Take me from there. Like talk me through everything from that point on.
So I had a great childhood. Both my parents worked. If I learned anything from my parents, it was work your ass off, and you'll get rewarded for it. So both of them worked full time. I was left to run rampant on my own. It was great having 2 parents that were both NCOs in the Air Force at one time. My mom had to get out when she started having kids, but she actually enlisted in the Air Force before my dad did. Right at the start of the Korean War, and then Dad enlisted in '52. They got married at West Palm Beach Air Force Base. How come we don't have Air Force bases at places like Myrtle Beach and West Palm Beach? Right. But I grew up on Myrtle Beach Air Force Base. So back when that was the thing. But I just knew that I was going to go into the military all my life. It was 100% guaranteed. And my favorite uncle on my dad's side, my Uncle Raymond, his little brother, was an absolute psychopath. The guy was just, looking back on it now, guaranteed he was not right in so many ways, but he was phenomenal in so many other ways. Couldn't stay married, couldn't keep a job, kind of thing. And now we would look at it and probably diagnose it PTSD. But he was a Force Recon Marine in Vietnam, volunteered for 4 tours. Every tour ended with a Purple Heart. One time he was battlefield promoted to lieutenant, and then lost it by getting into a bar fight and being arrested. Well, he was arrested because he was in a bar that he would routinely put on a lieutenant's rank, even though he was a sergeant, and he would go into the bar because the officers had better alcohol. And when the MPs caught him, they'd beat the crap out of him, throw him in jail or kick him out or whatever. So here he is, a newly minted lieutenant, and he's in the bar, and the MPs come in, try to throw him out, and he's insisting that he really is an officer, and it turned into this huge melee. So not only did he get demoted, but he lost a rank from where he was when he first got this commission. So, anyway, guaranteed I'm going to be a Marine. I'm following in Uncle Ray's footsteps. And I turned 16, and my Uncle Ray is visiting, helping my dad roof the house. And I get this leg shaking, in the middle of the night, and I jump up, and Uncle Ray's like, "Hey, get dressed, you're coming with me." Like, cool. I have no idea where we're going. I don't know what we're doing, but I'm in. So I get dressed, and like, wait a minute, I've got school today. He said, nah, I checked with your dad. It's cool. Come on. So we hop in his truck, and he had been a drill instructor at Parris Island. And he had, following at the end of the Vietnam War, he went back. He was a DI before Vietnam. He was a DI after. So we go down there. He still knew a whole bunch of people on the base. And for my 16th birthday present, he took me to Parris Island and took me all over the base and introduced me to all of his old buddies. We got to watch a lot of the guys in training, and it was pretty damn clear, pretty damn quick that this is not for me. And it hurt. It hurt bad. Because I thought I was going to be the Uncle Ray that did everything that Uncle Ray didn't do, or and I'll do better. And now I'm like, I don't think I want to be a Marine. And on the 2.5-hour drive home from Parris Island, Uncle Ray looks over and is like, "So, still want to be a Marine?" And, no, I really don't. And he said, "Good. That was the whole purpose of this. You need." And then we had a long talk about the future, the different services. It was wonderful. He shared a lot of war stories with me that he never told. He never talked to Vietnam about anybody but me, and we talked a lot about a lot of stuff that happened to him. And now we've diagnosed him easily with PTSD, and hopefully there'd be help for him. But he wound up passing from what we believe was induced from Agent Orange. That he literally woke up one day and was paralyzed from the eyelids down.
Jeez.
Massive stroke. And it was just he'd recovered somewhat, but not enough, and he was in a living hell because his brain was still great, but he was trapped in a body that just was completely broken.
Man.
But once I realized that the Marines were out, then I guarantee you this much: I'm not going in the Air Force, because the only thing you do in the Air Force is either fly planes or fix them or guard them, and I don't want to do any of those. So went to the Army. And started looking at a lot of stuff that the Army had, and there was an Army Reserve recruiter. That man could sell ice cubes to Eskimos. I mean, he was an awesome salesman, and he worked it out on paper. He showed me the whole 9 yards. That as soon as I graduated high school, I would go to Fort Jackson for basic training right there, an hour from home. I'd be in the the Army Reserve. And go 4-year free ride to University of South Carolina, ROTC. And he worked out, which school I would go to every summer in order to make sure that by the time I graduated as a lieutenant, infantryman, I was all set, ready to go Q course and get into Special Forces and da-da-da-da. I mean, he had it all listed out. It was just, he was doing it. Only thing he didn't do was put a bow on it. So I go home and tell my dad, Dad is livid. Like, we got you out of this with the whole Marine thing, and now this. And I said, I can't fix planes for a living. I can't guard them. This is, I've got to do something. So this is my next path. And he said, okay. So we were building our house, and he took a day off of building the house to come with me to go sign. We go into the Army Reserve recruiter's office, and he's not there. And I show the other recruiter, my appointment slip, and he looks over the guy's desk calendar, back when we would have desk calendars and you'd write it in paper. Right. He's like, yeah, you're right here. And my dad, the retired master sergeant, he's now at the time he was a federal cop. Like, well, excuse me, where is he?
Yeah.
He's like, oh, he's the Army Reserve Recruiter of the Year. He's in Atlanta, Georgia, getting his award. And my dad said, your #1 recruiter in the entire U.S. Army Reserve can't figure out how to pick up a phone call and cancel an appointment. And he looked over at me and said, are you ready to go join a service that's got people in it? Like, yes, sir. So out we go. So that didn't turn out well.
Yeah.
Well, you know what? I got another choice. I got another chance. I really don't want to go into the Navy. The Coast Guard could be cool. That could be something. And the Coast Guard recruiter's office was in the same building that my dad worked at as a federal cop. So he takes me to work with him one day, and I go meet the Coast Guard guy. And the minute my dad walks out the door, this guy just turns into this, you got to understand something, boy. The United States Coast Guard does not need you. We don't have a problem getting people to recruit. We don't even actively recruit. People come to us. So if you can qualify, if you're good enough, then maybe we'll talk to you. But first, you got to take the test. Okay. So I'm already getting my hackles up a little bit. I take a silly little test, and about the time that the test results are coming through, my dad comes walking back in, and I go, "Wow, this is really good. From your test scores, you qualify to do anything that we have in the enlisted corps. What are you thinking?" And I said, "I'm thinking that I don't want to be a part of your service." And I got up and I walked out and slammed the door behind me, like a good, strong 17-year-old kid could do, 16-year-old.
Sure.
My dad walks out a couple minutes later, and he is hot because I just embarrassed the crap out of him. And I told him exactly what the guy said and how he acted the minute we walked out of the room, and how he changed again when he walked back in. And Dad's like, "Cool, that'll work." So awesome. Well, now I'm truly screwed. I have absolutely no guidance whatsoever. What am I going to do with my life? And I'm about to turn 17 or just turned 17, and back in the day, Air Force retirees, just like families, the base covered everything. So your dental was with the base dental office, all of your hospital stuff, the emergency room, everything, retirees, families, dependents, everybody went to on base. So I'm driving to go to a dental appointment, and Shaw Air Force Base has a very long stretch of highway just to the south of it called Highway 278. And that's where the aircraft fly right over top of when they're landing. This helicopter buzzes my car, or at least it felt like that to me. But it turned out to be it was a CH-3 at 800 feet coming over top of the highway, or 1,000 feet, rather, 1,000 feet. And 4 dudes fall out. And I'm watching this going, holy crap, how I did not wreck my car, I have no idea. But 4 people just jumped out of a helicopter right there. Like, oh, I got to know what this is about. So as soon as I got on base, I started trying to drive to where they were jumping, and nobody's stopping me. There's not like
That's awesome.
sawhorses or gate guards so boom, I come around the corner on the Flight Line Road, and there's all these POVs parked out there. It's like, well, what's one more? They'll never know it's mine. So I tuck my car in, I get out, I start walking around expecting to get challenged or something. It's a jump fest. So here's all of these different Air Force people jumping out of airplanes, and I just start talking to folks. And before long, I'd come across a guy with a black beret, and we start talking, and I was like, man, this is just amazing. I would really like to do that. And he's like, well, here. And he tore off a scratch piece of paper and wrote down the P275XO. It said, go give that to your recruiter. All right. So hop in the car, go zipping straight out to the recruiter's office, go in, tell the recruiter what I want to do. And he's like, what are you talking about? And I said, there's this job where guys control airplanes and they bomb stuff, and they're in the woods. They're Army, but they're Air Force. And he's like, no, I think somebody.
They never know.
Yeah.
Those are, I don't know what it is about recruiters back in the day, but they never knew what it was. Nobody ever knew.
So I said, well, I got this piece of paper, and handed it to him. He said, huh, wait a minute. And he gets out this big binder and flips on it. Dust. Hey, that is a curriculum. Hey, we got a VHS tape on this. You want to watch it? Sure. So he plugs the tape in, and I mean, one of the old, this is 1980, so he, plugs the whole thing in, and we sit and watch, and it's basically a Vietnam War era, guys running around with the green pickle suits, with the name tape was white, with white letters, and they're Vietnam steel pots, and I was like, yeah, that's me. That's what I want to do. So I signed that up as my guaranteed enlistment, and my father was more than happy to come down and sign for this one. Um, Secretly, what I really wanted to do was, in the meantime, um, my mom almost died from emphysema, and in fact, I was the one that drove her to the hospital that night, and I wasn't even smart enough to call the ambulance. I just literally picked her up, threw her in the car, and drove right through the gate. Never even stopped at the gate. Just blasted straight through the gate. Went to the hospital. Security forces guys come up after mom's already in the ER, and gave me all kinds of chewing out for running through the gate. And her nurse turned out to be a former PJ. And he and I were talking. I was all proud, telling him about the tactical air command and control specialist. He's like, "Well, have you ever thought about being a pararescueman?" What's that? It's like, so he tells me the whole thing about PJs, and I'm like, "Oh my god, really? That's for real?" And he said, "Yeah." He's like, "Have you ever heard of Soldier of Fortune magazine?" No. Like, go check the library. You'll probably be able to find. So I finally found articles about Soldier, in Soldier Fortune magazine about pararescuemen. Airman magazine had a cover story about one of their, one of the PJs, and like, oh my God! And I was, doing all the research on it. It's like, okay. So I went back to the recruiter and said, "Can I change this?" And obviously, you can't come in guaranteed for pararescue. And he said, "But don't worry about it, because you're guaranteed to go to the 275 job. So if you don't make it through selection for pararescue, you just fall back right into TACP." Like, awesome. How could this work any better? Well, um, I thought I had done a really good job of preparing myself for the PAJ tryout, and a bazillion pull-ups, push-ups, sit-ups, runs. We were building a log home out in the middle of nowhere. So, whenever we're not actually working, I'm picking up logs and throwing them, and doing anything I can think of to help stress and stress and stress. And meanwhile, we have a little itty-bitty pool in the backyard, and I'm swimming and treading water, and I think I am in just an absolute perfect. This is going to be a breeze. Basic training is a breeze. Comes the day to go PJ tryout, and my bunkmate, a really cool kid, he was going in to be, he was open general. And he said, "I have no idea, what I'm going to get." I said, "Well, I told him all about pararescue." He's like, "I'd really like to do that." I was like, "Well, come on." So he went with me, and the two of us went to go do the tryout. And I was number one in the selection group by the time we got through with the pull-ups, the push-ups, the sit-ups, the run. Back in the day, it was a mile and a half on a sand track in your blouse boots. So just horrible. But I'm still, like, at the end of the run, I was like number 3 or 4 in the group. I'm like, good, this is perfect, right where I want to be. Like, okay, now you go in for the swim. And as we go get changed and come out and get ready to do our swim test, he's like, "All right, boys, we only have 3 slots available. The 3 fastest swim times are in." Fast? But what do you mean fast? Fastest? Yeah. There's very few things in life I do quickly. And swimming is definitely not one of them. So that didn't work out well at all.
Oh, man.
My bunkmate was number 2.
Nice.
And he made it in. Years later, he and I were stationed together at Langley Air Force Base, and he was a photojournalist. And I said, "You went to PJ school?" He said, No. I graduated PJ school. I served for 3 years as a pararescueman, and then I had a parachute accident where I broke both of my femurs." And he said, "The only thing I think of is that bastard Monroe talked me into this." So here I get to serve with him again. It was pretty funny to meet him up, but turned out better for me than him, I guess.
Yeah. So then, so talk to me about tech school. Like back then, was it at Herbie still, or was it at Keesler, or where'd you guys go for that?
And I'll tell you, so there was a life lesson that I learned at basic training that really helped me a lot at tech school. Because I was a very sheltered kid. I mean, literally, I grew up almost on my own. And I never played sports because there wasn't anybody that drove me, as in pushed me to do I could do what I want. So, I wanted to do this, so I did that. I didn't want to do this, so, why would I go out there and kill myself, just to make this coach look good? I'm not part of it. So, I go to basic training, and my dad, my parents both military. My dad said, "Hey, look for Chief Piga." I said, "What?" He said, yeah, I heard stories growing up about the family, the Pigas, Piga. And he said, "Yeah, Chief Master Sergeant Piga, I think is still down there. We get Christmas cards from them. He's in San Antonio somewhere." Dad, it's Lackland Air Force Base. I imagine it's got to be huge. I'm in basic training. I'm never going to meet Chief Piga. He said, "Well, you'll know him if you see him. He's about twice as tall as any other human you'll ever meet." Like, what? He actually was a minor league basketball player.
Oh, okay.
Just a huge guy. But I'm the dorm chief. We're standing out and after chow, waiting for our TIs to come pick us up. And I look over, and here comes this mountain of a man with a bunch of satellite NCOs orbiting him as they're walking. And he's got more stripes. It just, it covers his entire arm.
Right.
And I'm like, oh my God, that guy is huge. And I'm just far enough away to where I can see his name tag is really, really, really short. Like, wait a minute, tall, big. Like, what's the worst that can happen? So I snap to attention, I about face, I take a couple steps, I make a beautiful facing movement, I walk right up in front of him and stop at attention, and he looks down on me like the biggest pile of burning dog poop. He's like, "Can I help you?" And I said, "Chief Master Sergeant Piga, Master Sergeant Ronald J. Monroe retired, sends his regards." And the whole time I'm staring at his belly button, basically, because I'm not moving.
Right.
And he looked at my name, and he looked at me, and he grabbed my chin and poked my face up, and he said, "Give me your 341. Like, damn, I'm busted. So I pull out the little piece of paper that you have to keep with you, and write up if you ever screwed up. And
Sure.
he wrote a bunch of crap on it, and he crumpled it up into a little ball and shoved it into my chest. And I grabbed it, and he said, "Give that to your TI." I said, "Yes, Chief Master Sergeant." "Get out of my face." "Yes, Chief Master Sergeant." Facing movements go back to hand, and I pull out my little book to read, which is what I'm supposed to be doing, and I can't read it because my hands are basically shaking like this the whole time. Holy crap! The TI comes running up. She watched the whole time. And she comes running going, "What did that Chief Master Sergeant want?" And I said, "Ma'am, he told me to give you this." And I handed her the piece of paper, and she unfolded it and, "Oh, okay, all right," and folds it up and gives it back to me. It was hours before I had the guts to even open it up. And it said, "Airman Basic Monroe is part of an Air Force recruiting program. I need to visit with them every week, Tuesday morning, 0700 to my office."
Wow.
The next day was Tuesday. So at 6:45, my TI put me on the road saying to get to Air, because he was the Chief Master Sergeant in charge, the Senior List Advisor for Air Force recruiting.
Wow.
So I didn't know, right? So
Yeah.
he puts me on the road to, "You walk down here, take a left, big building, first floor." I was like, okay. So I walk down, and at 7 o'clock, I knock on his door. He opens up the door and goes, "Oh my God!" and picks me up like a little rag doll. And he was the first guy that ever babysat me. I mean, that's how far back my parents.
Oh, really? Like
Yeah.
really babysat you?
Yes.
Oh,
Yep.
Wow.
My dad was a staff sergeant, and he was a tech. And so, yeah, he pulls me in, like, "This is so cool." And his secretary was already there. He's like, "Hey," whatever the secretary's name was, "give us a couple cups of coffee and a couple donuts." And we go into his office, and we just start talking. And he's like, "What time did your mom come to work?" "Oh, I think like 7:30. And picks up the phone and dials my mom's number and goes, "Hey, Marty, guess who I got in my office?" And hands the phone over to me. And I sit and talk to my mom.
Wow.
So every Tuesday for all of basic training, I went to Chief Piga's office. Even when he wasn't there, the secretary would meet me, give me a cup of coffee, a donut. I'd go into the chief's office, lay down on the sofa, chill out for a little while. By 8 o'clock, I had to be back to the flight. So I got a little time off every week. And was like,
That's awesome.
I kind of got the idea that, sometimes if you take chances, it'll work. You gotta have the guts to try, but
Yeah.
it might work. You never know until you try. And tech school was like that. We showed up at Hurlburt and we had 40 some people in the room, and they showed the same VHS tape that I saw in the recruiter's office with bombs going off and all about the job and working with the Army and calling in airstrikes. It was old A7s and F4s on the film. Um, and Wally Kuha was our lead instructor, and he gets up there just mean as a snake kind of a guy, and he gets up there all growly and says, if this is not for you, now is the time to leave. The Air Force needs cooks and they need gate guards. And I swear we lost probably maybe a quarter of the class right then. They all just got up and left. So like, shit, okay, this is interesting. By the time we finished, we had almost a 50% attrition rate. So
Wow.
it was a ball buster of a group. But I started, looking at it at all the different options available, and I really, really, really wanted to go airborne. Didn't know if I could make it. Had no idea if I could actually make it through jump school, but really wanted to try. And
Mm.
so we started pushing. And so I had a guy down the hall, didn't get along with really well. Neat enough guy, but damn, he was in great shape. So I tried to keep up with him. His name was Andy Bryce. Um, so Andy and I actually got to know each other pretty good, and we graduated number 1 and 2 in the class, and they only had 2 slots to jump school, and so we got the 2 slots to go to jump school.
Nice.
So that was a good lesson learned on, if you try, if you really push it. And I would suggest, again, growing up basically on my own, the rule in the house was no F, no beating. So as long as I didn't fail a class, my report cards were my business. So when I got to tech school, I recognized that that's not going to cut it. So
Yeah.
I had to learn how to study. And luckily, I had my roommate was named John Zaruba. I think he still lives in New Jersey now. But John, very smart guy. And John was, taught me how to study, and we would quiz each other. And another guy right across the hall, Kevin Platt, became a real good friend. So we had a little study group, and we really worked hard at trying to get the top scores as we could. Shocked the crap out of me when I was the number 1 grad out of tech school,
Wow.
and it's like, man, that was just it was a huge shock. But I learned a really valuable lesson in that, if you're a jerk, you're going to get what you deserve.
Yeah.
And Andy and I, by being, our grades were way up there. We weren't sure who was 1 or 2. Our PT was way up there. You could almost hardly not smoke us. We were just obnoxious. Now we really just, and we rubbed people's noses. We just did everything wrong. It was just wrong.
Yeah.
Well, they got us back. Um, so in jump school, there's this thing called 0 week. 0 week is the week before jump school starts.
Mm-hmm.
And if the military branch has nothing better for you to do, then they send you to jump school for 0 week. So for 7 days, Andy and I were E1s in the Air Force, assigned to the jump school to do nothing but PT and details. And they just absolutely beat the crap out of us. I literally dug a hole in order to be able to move the dirt, and another TI, another black hat, showed up, yelled at me for putting dirt onto his ground, and I had to go fill that hole in and dig another hole to fill the. Yeah, just stupid stuff like that.
Yeah.
Fill up sandbags in order to move them to another part of the fort to dump the sand out of those sandbags, and then I had to clean the sand out of the sandbags to properly fold the sandbags. And uh, I was a broken little airman by the time jump school was ready to start. I mean,
Yeah.
a black hat walked into the room, and I'm snapping to attention. I'm just scared shitless of these guys.
Right.
And jump school's about to start. They take Andy and I and go, you guys are sister service. You move down to this end of the hall. So we moved down to the far end where all the sister service is going to be. Sister service was one Marine, Andy and I, and then 29 Navy SEAL candidates, 2 officers and 27 enlisted.
Jeez.
Back in the day, jump school was the last school they had to go to before they went to their teams and then would eventually get their trident. So these guys were in the peak of physical conditioning, and they were all, I mean, they were tight as you could possibly get.
Yeah.
And Andy and I got split up. We were in 2 different rooms. So I'm in a room with 3 other SEALs, and I'm telling them about what my job is going to be. And like, oh, that is so cool. So you're talking to the pilots, and you're talking, and they're bombing stuff. And I'm thinking, these guys are Navy SEAls, and they're sounding like we're cool.
Right.
Just weird. And I swear to God, this is a true story. The very first day when we're unpacking stuff and getting our lockers all set up, an Army NCO sticks his head in the room and says, "Hey, we need a volunteer for fire guard." I've done fire guard all week. I know exactly what fire guard is. And I start to stand, and this big ass Samoan hand grabs my shoulder and shoves me down. And slowly, the guy's name was Guma Tautau. And slowly, Guma Tautau stood up and said, "If there is and I apologize for the language, if there's a fire in your fucking Army barracks, it's a fucking Army problem. Get out of my room." And the black cat turned and left.
That's awesome.
I'm thinking, we're dead. He's going to come back with 30 of his buddies, and this is the worst thing. Never heard another word about it.
Really? Wow.
Never heard another word about it. We got none of the sister service got tagged for any details. We were just left alone to go do what it was that we did. Unbelievable.
That's awesome.
So the only reason why I graduated jump school was one of my roommates, a guy named Frank Wilson. The fourth jump, I blew out my knee. It was a night jump. I couldn't, tell the ground. I knew it was coming up. You could see the lights in the distance. So I put my feet together, and just as I'm really concentrating on tightening up my knees together, I hit. And I come straight down. It was zero in. Oh. And I drive my heels right up into my butt, and my left knee just goes pow. And I roll over on the ground and trying to get up and could barely get up, barely packed everything together, hobbled off the drop zone, and I'm thinking, that's it. 4 jumps, and I'm 1 away, and I'm done. And I make it back to our room, and we're undressing, and my knee is swollen up like a walrus, all purple. And Frank's like, all you got to do is, we had a 3-mile run to do on the graduation morning to make sure that everybody was still healthy. He did a 3-mile run, which ended at the ramp, at Green Ramp, and then loaded up, go for your 5th jump. And so Frank's like, I can get you there. You just got to trust me. Like, what? He goes, we're basically going to cast your knee in a running position. So he said, we did this a bunch during buds. So he grabs the lace tape, and he basically casts my leg in a slight bent of an angle and said, just try not to let them see that you're limping when you run.
Wow.
And I did it and made it. So it was absolutely incredible. So
yeah,
those guys reach out and take care of us, and we held them in such awe. It was pretty neat.
How was that run? Was it brutal?
Oh, it was horrible.
Yeah.
It was horrible. I swear, I thought I was going to lose my bladder the entire way. I never had felt pain like that before.
Oh,
but
man.
The funny part was, because you were all taller cap, right? So several of the SEALs were my size. I'm 5'6". So a bunch of the SEALs around me were surrounding me, and anytime I started to limp or shuffle a little worse, because we were doing really slow airborne shuffle, they would grab me and pull me into the middle of the formation where nobody could see me. So they basically kind of shielded me. It's just such a unique experience. So right at the very beginning of jump school, so the whole thing with the fire guard happened. The next morning, you do your PT test, and we finished our PT test. We're in our uniform. We're getting our first uniform inspection, and the black cat's coming along. And he just, he goes up and down and checks out the SEAL standing next to me. And then he comes over to me and he's starting with my boots and goes up and he gets as far as where U.S. Air Force. And he just loses it. Air Force! Air Force! I'd rather have a sister in a whorehouse than a brother in the Air Force. And the SEAL next to me goes, I swear to God, I had her. She wasn't bad. This guy grabs the front of our shirts, pulls us out of line, throws us down the line, sends us to the gig pit. Every morning for a week, we had to run it over. And to them, the gig pit was just PT. I mean, they lived it, loved it. I'm sitting there, sucking pine straw up my nose, trying to figure out how I can do one more push-up when my arms don't work anymore. So I was dying, but it was so damn funny. So, jump school was quite the experience.
Yeah. Yeah, those SEALs are good to get you in trouble. And I mean, I had this similar experience in jump school. It was like they would just, because they were, like you said, they were just physical specimens at that point, and they would just run their mouth and get everybody in trouble, and they didn't care. They could just do push-ups for days. So yeah.
They had a frogman party. While we were training, these guys would be talking about setting up the party, and the black cats were like, "It is forbidden to have a party during jump school. You will not have a gathering. You will not." Blah, 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 just yelling and screaming at them. Meanwhile, they're suddenly going, "Yeah, well, how many Ks do you think we ought to buy? Can we rent out the airport for this?" Like they're completely oblivious of the whole thing.
Yeah.
So the jump week, the night of, I think it was day one of jump week, we had our first jump. They have the frogman party, and every black cat showed up.
Really?
Every single black cat knew that it was coming. Every single one of them was there, and it was like everybody was best buddies.
Oh, that's awesome.
Next morning, boom, you were back in the fight again. And that was a big lesson learned of, there's people have roles to play.
Sure.
And you don't quite realize, what your role is until you understand all the players in the act. Kind of funny.
Yeah. So after that, you went to the Det 1?
Showed up at Det 1, January of '82. And, again, thinking that, I've really achieved something. I've done what everybody else has done, right? So I show up and, if you think sending a 17-year-old to Fort Walton Beach in the summertime, the first time he's away from home, with money, now that I'm getting paid, was a bad idea. Turning me loose in Fayetteville at Fort Bragg with zero adult supervision was really a bad idea. And thank God, I mean, you can see God's hand working miracles in my career, all 36 years of it. My supervisor was James H. Felton Jr., Airborne Jimmy. Super cool guy, super laid back from the mean streets of South Philly. Nothing could rankle him, nothing could anger him. He was always cool, calm, collected. I had a great team. I was part of 2nd Brigade. Desi Alexander was our NCOIC, and nobody messed with Desi. And then we had, the other folks in our flight, Chris Ovzak, and in our brigade rather. But Airborne Jimmy was the guy that literally brought me up in the Air Force. He was the big brother that I wouldn't do that if I were you. I'd do it anyway. I'd get into trouble, or I'd break something, or hurt myself, or whatever. And you're like, what'd I tell you?
Right.
The famous phrase with me was always, slow down. Like, yep. Sometimes yes, sometimes no. But I really owe him a great debt. Just a super cool. Still stay in touch with him. Retired. He was at headquarters TAC when he retired, working, I think, directly for a 2-star. So here comes his retirement, and he invites me as a major to come retire him. So a little awkward that I'm the guy officiating at a retirement for a guy that works for all these generals and colonels, and the whole room is filled with some NCOs, but mostly very senior officers. And it was really a wild experience to look at it and go, man, how far have we come?
Right.
But just still such a great guy. It was really funny that he and I had been, we keep in touch, and he lives in Williamsburg, Virginia. I live in South Carolina. I'm on my way up north to go teach a class somewhere, and I'm thinking, this really sucks. This is pretty shitty of me to not swing by and see Jim. He's like an hour and a half drive off the interstate to go see him. Like, oh, I'll see him on the way back. But he was really on my mind. And I looked up ahead and noticed that one of the cars I'm catching up on is a Charger. Like, yeah, that's Jimmy's car. He's always a big Charger and a Dodge Charger guy. He's like, that's the kind of car that Jimmy would drive. And Jimmy being a Penn State, I mean, he was the first guy I ever knew that went to college. He had to leave to come in the Air Force, but so he was a former Penn State student, and on the back of this Charger is a big Nittany Lion sticker. It's like, damn, that's exactly the kind of sticker that his license plate was ABNJMY, Airborne Jimmy.
It's definitely him then, for sure.
Well, it's got to be him. And because of some medical issues, Jimmy had lost sight in his left eye. So I pull up alongside him, knowing he can't see me, and I pull up alongside him on the left, look over, and it's him. Like, oh my God, oh my God, oh my God. So I drift back several cars, get back behind him, reach out and find my phone, dial his cell number, and he picks up the phone. We just start chatting away, and he's like, hey, so what'd you call? I was like, you'll never believe this, man. I had a dream about you driving on the interstate. And he said, I'm driving on the interstate right now. Said, you're not. He said, yeah, I really am. And by this point, I've been catching up slowly on his left side. And I said, in this dream, this jackass swerved into you and almost killed you. He said, well, let's hope in about that time I'm pulling past him and I start to cut in front of him. And he's, beat the horn, and I drift back to where he can see me, and he's like, oh my God! So we pull over the next exit, and there was some cheap chicken place, so we just pull over and park and go run inside and do about an hour and a half of catch up over some really horrible greasy chicken. They gave us both the runs.
What are the odds that he was right there, though? I mean, that's crazy.
Impossible. Absolutely impossible. That's one of the photos I'll send you. So I had to take a picture of us gathered around his car. So it's pretty cool. But Bragg was just the greatest place ever that I could have possibly grown up, because it was, especially back in the very early 80s, there was a lot of time where you were just left to your own devices, and the brigades ran what we did. So we had the old M151 Jeeps, the Mark 107s, and so they always needed some sort of corrosion control done to them, and then there was always brakes to be changed or tires to be swapped out, and making trips over to the motor pool. And then we'd go out and have to test the radios, and there'd be whole mornings where Desi's like, "Be back by lunch." Well, I don't care where you go. I don't care what you do. Get out of here. Be back by lunch.
Nice.
Go grab my mark, grab a canteen of water, and off I go. I'd just go start, four-wheeling around the Fort Bragg ranges, learning all the back roads, which turned out to be super helpful. Years later, when we started the ETAC program and we're controlling air, and all the cut roads to get from point A to point B. But it was so wonderful to come up in a place where you had that latitude, but you were always training for something. There was always something about, there was another exercise. I think I went through 5 major exercises my first 2 years that we were there. Gallant Eagle 82, the jump into the Valley of Death, where a bunch of guys died, a whole bunch of them got hospitalized on the bad jump. Jim Felton was one of the guys that jumped in, and I was at the core, basically almost like the A-side, air landed in. But Gallant Eagle 82, Brimfrost up in Alaska, followed right into Bright Star, so the Sahara Desert, and then back to Fort Irwin again for Gallant Eagle 84. So I can't remember what the 5th one was. what we did. But anyway, just we're always prepping for something. So it got you in the habit of, you always had to have an eye on what's in the future and how were you going to get there, to be able to be prepped and ready to go. And that was really a very good foundation of, always keep your eye on the future, always know, what it is that you're doing. And meanwhile, you're supposed to be, taking care of, your career. Who knew anything about a career, right?
Right.
It was impossible to think of along the lines of, this is my life now. Nobody ever got an assignment. Nobody ever left, right? This is who you were. And then Chris Ozak got an assignment to Alaska. And like, so you're leaving. Like, wow, we have to. You can't do that. I mean, you're breaking up the team. You're
Right.
breaking up the band, Yoko. Damn. So, and just, it was weird to start to get into this. Slowly, your aperture grew to understand that it wasn't just you and the small little group at Fort Bragg. You were part of bigger and bigger and bigger, and understanding how the Air Force worked. There was really a lot of goodness to that.
Yeah.
Then Grenada happened. I had a really bad landing. I blew out my right ankle, my left knee, compacted 3 vertebrae in my spine. Had to get operations on my ankle and my knee. And I was on convalescent leave when the Marine barracks came down, and then a couple weeks later we went into Grenada. And so that was a huge turning point for me, with an idea of, so this isn't all just about exercises. I mean, we could really do this stuff for real.
Right.
Nothing was on the horizon. You never knew. We didn't know Panama was coming. We didn't know Desert Shield or Storm was coming, right? But we really did get the idea that, oh man, holy crap, something's a little different today than it was yesterday.
Right.
And they came back from Grenada, and one of the lessons learned was that we didn't have enough Rangers, right? So first bat, second bat, not enough. You needed a third bat. Well, if you have 3 battalions, now you need a regiment. So they took some super sharp guys, sent them to Benning to stand up the 3rd Bat TACP in the 75th Ranger Regiment, and I wanted that job so bad.
Mm-hmm.
And I had busted my ass to get back on jump status. They wanted to pin my ankle, but if that happened, I'd be off jump status, so I wouldn't let them pin the ankle. And like, well, it's probably not going to ever heal correctly. Well, thank God it did.
Yeah.
I really, really worked my way back, and I knew that I needed to be an ETAC, so I got with the guys down at the wing and finagled my way into getting an ETAC evaluation, and that got me selected to stand up the standardization and evaluation division at Det 1. It was the first time we'd ever had a Sandoval office. So put all that together, like, I am the perfect guy to go to Benning. And like, boom. So Howard McNeil was already down there, and he called for me to come down, on a 3-month TDY. So I go down, loved it, lost my freaking mind, had a wonderful time. Guaranteed by Howard O that I was coming back full time. I go back to Bragg, in my mind, to PCS, and sure enough, I get to my desk and there's an assignment rip sitting in my inbox. So I rip it open, and it's to Langley Air Force Base, Virginia. Man, I was hot. And I went to Sergeant, I went to Jim Brock and asked him what the hell, and he's like, I don't know, I heard Joe and Larry talking about it. So Papa Joe wasn't there, so I go running up to Chief Viscus, and he said, yep, you've been by name requested to go to Headquarters Tactical Air Command and go work for Shorty Suarez. Like, no, I'm not. I'm going to Benning to be in the Rangers. I've already had the house picked out. I already know what kids are going to school. This, like, you don't understand the phrase from Top Gun Maverick. They're called orders.
Yeah,
So
right.
they're not suggestions. So, and I was a very unhappy camper.
Oh man.
But they picked me to go up there because when I wrote the supplement for the Flash and Crest, well, that kind of got my name out there that, hey, this kid can write. So I started writing all this other stuff. So I had been writing supplements and helping rewrite different things. So they picked me to go up to TAC. I'm a staff sergeant filling a master sergeant billet, and working for Tom DeFrange, who's now a senior master sergeant. And we both work directly for Chief Master Sergeant Suarez. And the absolute worst possible thing in my mind that could have happened turned out to be the absolute perfect thing for me. If I thought I had any clue what the Air Force was about or understood, big Air Force, no clue whatsoever. Had no earthly idea. And now I'm on a major command base with the 1st TAC Fighter Wing, F-15s, God's gift to fighter pilots everywhere. More stars than a night sky running around that base. Right. And chiefs, holy crap, captains were making coffee and carrying bags. So it was a crazy time. But so many good things came out of that. I worked for a guy that was a Raven fact in Laos during the Vietnam War, and Colonel Cosmo was had been on me about going to college, finishing school, and I'm pushing back, and he started talking about computers one day, and I said, I know nothing about them. He said, well, we're all going to get computers. We're going to get computers. Who gets a computer? He goes, no, there's a computer at your desk. I said, like hell. It's like, no, seriously. Like, no way. Like, yeah. And every office has to have a instructor to teach everybody else in the office how to use all the programs. And I'm thinking, program as in you go to the play and they give you a program. And I'm like, right. To learn a program? He goes, yeah. And, well, that job's got to suck. So I show up the next morning, there's a note on my desk from Cosmo saying, you ought to report to this building at this room at this time. Like, cool. I had about an hour, so I go and get my coffee and go walking in. Me and about 30 other secretaries from across the entire Langley Air Force Base are in this room to learn how to set up your Pac Bell desktop computer and then learn Lotus 123, Word Star, I think it was, and like 2 other programs. I was so damn mad to get stuck with this because now I got to, I had to set up everybody's computer in the office. I had to teach them all how to use the stupid thing. When I did finally sit back to college, the abilities that I had before me with the stupid computer going, this is great! Unbelievable! These floppy disks that could hold all kinds of stuff in them as opposed to my manila folder that had all my papers in them. So it just. But
you had to at the time, you had to be super pissed. Like, you could have been, with the Rangers doing cool stuff. Meanwhile, you're in this class with these secretaries learning computers. It's like, what the hell? Yeah, sometimes we can't see the goodness in the situations we're in, but yeah, that seems like it paid off for you, though.
You cannot. And again, I keep talking about life lessons. There was a really good one that, if you're generally a good guy and you do the right things for the right reason, people are going to invest in you. Smart people don't invest into bad options, right? So they put their money into good investments. Today we call it mentoring. But I had some really good guys that really watched out for me and, like Cos did, mentored me to push me in the right direction to learn stuff that I never thought I couldn't, never thought I'd be able to, somebody working on a computer. And Chief Suarez, gave me a mentoring session. What was really cool was Chief Suarez still loved to jump. The whole story behind Shorty Suarez, he was a first-generation American. He was a illegal alien. He was a Cuban immigrant, and he got his American citizenship by enlisting in the Air Force in the Vietnam War. This man fled Air Force Blue. He was 100%. You could not speak ill of the Air Force in his presence. He would not tolerate it. And I got to know him really well because he loved to jump. So my job in that job was basically to run the parachute program for all of Tactical Air Command, not just TACPs, but anybody that in headquarters or in tactical air command at the jump. School slots to Lakehurst if you couldn't get to Benning, and just all kinds of stuff. So I got to go jump quite a bit, and anytime that one of my jobs was to make sure that Chief Suarez always got his jump pay. So once a quarter, I would find a TDY someplace where he nearby where he could go make a jump, and most of the time it was a quick run from Langley down to Bragg, and we'd go do a helicopter jump. So that trip down and back in the car and dinner the night before kind of thing, I got a lot of good mentoring sessions from Chief Suarez. And one of the ones I remember he was talking about the importance of professional military education. Who needs that? I mean, this is silly, right? And he's like, well, it's just one of those things you got to do. It's like, I don't want to. You don't care what you want. You're going to do this. Like, all right. So he sends me to NCO Leadership School. Today it'd be Airman Leadership School, but back in the day, day one, I passed Chief in the hallway. And back at work, he says, Mitchell, what are you doing here? I'm like, I quit. And he said, what? I said, I quit. You can't quit. It's like, Chief, before you get mad at me, and he got mad quick. Before you get mad at me, they wouldn't let me wear my beret or blouse my boots. And he said, what? I said, I showed up. You have to show up in service class, certain dress or class A's, we used to call them. So I had my beret, my uniform, blouse, boots, absolutely ridiculously glossy jump boots. Sure. And there was a pararescueman, TDY there, that was in the class. And the commandant called the two of us into his office and said, in NCO Leadership School, we believe in uniform, and you two are not uniform. You're in uniform, but you are not uniform. I need you in your flight caps, and I need you in low quarters. And I said,
did you even have them at the time?
No.
I know that. No, exactly. Yeah. None of us ever even had that stuff.
No, are you kidding? Oh, when we got our black berets, the first thing you had to do was pull out your K-bar. Everybody had to have a K-bar. So you paid your own money and you bought a K-bar. Downtown Fort Walton. So you pulled out your K-bar and you chopped up your flight cap. While your black beret wrapped up with your boot blousing bands. Remember the stringing with the little hooks, right? So you wrapped that around your beret. You rolled it up nice and tight. Oh, you used your K-bar to cut. You had to pop the cherry. You cut the liner out of your beret. Rolled your beret up nice and tight, and then stuffed it in a pitcher of beer. So while it fermented,
we never did that.
while it fermented in this pitcher of beer, you took your K-bar and chopped up your flight cap. And then you pulled the beret out, soaking wet, take the blousing bands off, put it on your head. This is all in the NCO club. And you form it perfectly to where it sits, and then you let it sit in your head and dry while you are drinking this ridiculously, horribly nasty pitcher of black beer. Because all the dye and the fuzz and all the wool shit came out of it. Yeah. So that was the last time I saw my flight cap. So anyway, remember, I wrote the tax supplement that authorized the flash and crest. So I knew, I quoted chapter and verse that, what was legal. Well, so I told the commandant that, no, that's against Air Force regulations. I am authorized to wear this. And he said, you don't have a choice. I said, I really think I do. Goodbye. And I walked out and went back to work. And
that's awesome.
About an hour later, I'm telling Chief this. Chief calls in my office and goes, your class is at lunch. You make sure you're in classroom when they come back from lunch. And I said, well, about you, just you be you. You're good. Okay. So I went back in, and Chief Suarez had fixed the little problem. Nice. So I finished the PJ and I both finished the school with our berets and our blouse boots.
That's awesome.
It was pretty wild. But,
yeah. I think you probably set the standard, because I think we all, well, I know I did. I wore a beret when I was there. I think everybody does now. I think that's just the way they do it.
It should be, right? If you're trying to evaluate me on how I wear my uniform, then evaluate me on how I wear my uniform.
Right.
Yeah. they really lost it on Friday when we were allowed to wear our utilities. Everybody else back then was still in the green pickle suit, except now they've gone to the blue name tags instead of the green name tags with the blue lettering instead of blue tags with white letters, which are really bad.
All right.
So I show up in my jungle camis with the slant pockets, and yeah, the 82nd Airborne patch on the shoulder. Oh my God!
Oh, man,
So
that's awesome.
the fact that they couldn't keep me from being a DG out of leadership school because my grades were high, but they darn sure didn't give me any other awards. So
Yeah.
I
I think
got
it's so hilarious that you just left. You're like, yeah, I'm out of here.
five. But I had a job to do. I had
Yeah.
stuff falling up on my desk. I can't be gone for the silliness. So yeah, that was a good lesson learned. But the other funny thing with Chief Suarez is Chief Suarez tricked me into going to officer training school.
Oh, yeah. How
He
so?
truly did. So those mentoring sessions, he was on me about college. And I was honest with him. I was like, Chief, I don't want to be an officer. I don't need my bachelor's degree. And he said, no, if by the time you make it to compete for chief, you're not going to believe you'll need a bachelor's degree by then. It's going to be really competitive. I'm like, oh, that's insane. That's officer stuff, right? So I had my CCAF. You got to do that.
Yeah.
And that was it. I'm done. And he's like, no, you really got to finish. One day he calls me into his office and he said, your job went away. And I said, I really don't think it did. I'm working my ass off 6 days a week here. And he laughed. He goes, no. The manpower, we had this huge reduction in force going on. And he said they came through and they saw that there were two 275s in that office, TAC DOIF. So you and DeFrank, so they cut your billet. I was like, well, cool. Where am I going? And he said, well, let's talk about that. He said, if the Air Force has said they don't need you, then they can't say no to letting you go. And I said, I'm not following. He said,
Yeah.
there's this cool program called Bootstrap where you get to go to college full time. And I said, well, I don't want, what do you mean? He said, no, you don't PCS, you don't go anywhere. You just don't come to work. You just you and the college work it out and you go get your bachelor's degree. I said, no way.
Yeah.
He said, yes, it's real. It's like, it can't be. He goes, go talk to the education office. So I go down and talk to the education office, and sure enough, it was a real thing. Like, this is crazy. So I fill out all the paperwork and figure out how to get the money to pay for my tuition. And boom, one day, bootstrapped approved. I just stopped coming to work. I'm a full-time dad. I go to lunch hour classes. I go to night school. I'm doing everything still through the classes on base. And life is good. I'm having a ball. I've been to the gym twice a day. I'm having it was absolute cake.
Yeah.
And I get a phone call at home, and it was the lady from the education office saying, hey, we need you to come in and start working on your application to OTS. I'm not applying to OTS. She goes, well, yeah, you're in Bootstrap.
Oh my God.
Well, I don't understand. She goes, Bootstrap, like pulling yourself up by your bootstrap. That's you get your degree so that you can go to OTS. I slam the phone down, hop in my Bronco, blast on the base. I storm into Chief Suarez's office and just unload on him on tricking me into not my best move.
Right.
A snotty-nosed E5 really should never raise his voice to a Cuban chief master sergeant.
Right.
That was a real bad mistake on my part, and Chief Suarez let me know clearly. And but the funny part at the end, when he had calmed down and I realized I was probably going to escape with my life, he's like, "What are you worried about? I don't want to go to OTS. I don't want to be an officer." He goes, "What's your degree in?" I said, "Criminology." The Air Force doesn't need criminology. The Air Force needs scientists. The Air Force needs mathematic guys. The Air Force needs pilots. You don't need no damn criminologists. You're never going to get selected. Don't worry about it. Like,
Yeah.
oh, that's awesome. Okay, that was a good idea. So I go
He
and I
fell
talk
for
to
it
him.
again.
Oh, big time. The whole time, he had already worked on the guy named Mike Dugan, who went on to be Chief of Staff of the Air Force, subsequently got fired for releasing some classified information on CNN.
Oh,
But at
jeez.
that time, he was my four-star. And I don't think there was a more powerful fighter pilot in the whole Air Force at that time. And Chief got Dugan to write a letter of recommendation for me. And at the end
Wow.
of it, instead of writing, he had taken a black Sharpie and wrote, "Make him a pilot. Return him to my underlying command." And then put his initials at the bottom. Giant ass black
Jeez.
Sharpie. So first chance into OTS, got picked first board, got picked for pilot training.
Wow. That
I
is
had never
crazy.
flown a day in my life except commercial or on an airplane to do an air land or an air drop. The idea
Sure.
that I'm going to be a pilot is no way. And sure enough, yeah, I set the land speed record washing out of pilot school. It turned out that it was a depth perception thing that when I'm flying a small um, light aircraft like a Cessna 172, easy. So at that speed, I have no problem being able to figure out the right landing attitude and short, long, high, low, whatever. Put me in a twin-engine acrobatic fighter, the T-37, and as far as I was concerned, I'm making every approach exactly the same way. But sometimes I was way off, and the IP would have to take over, and it was not a good situation.
Man.
So they wound up sending me to nav school, which again at the time huge fail, right? So end of career, and I was very very lucky because the Air Force had again we were in the midst of another drawdown, and if you washed out of a training program, you were separated.
Wow.
So the other thing about being an officer, a lot of folks don't realize is you don't have a contract. When you enlist, you have a contract that you sign. When you're
Hmm.
commissioned, you have no guarantee. So you literally serve out the pleasure. And at any time, they can say, "Thanks, we're done with you," and you're gone.
Wow.
So I was very fortunate that I did very well at officer training school, and had some awards and things behind me that made it to where that I was given a second chance and sent off to nav school. What should have been an absolute horrible failure turned out to be perfect. There was not a better job for me at the time. Um,
Nice.
and being a C-130 navigator, a low-level airdrop nav, I mean, I had all the experience as a master parachutist, being a jump master all those times, loading my Jeep, strapping it down, understanding everything that goes on the back of a hurt. Um, the best way to describe a C-130 airdrop nav is, in essence, you are trying to balance your checkbook on a roller coaster at night. That you got all these mathematical calculations you're doing in your head and trying to strategize how to deal with time, deal with weather, and then figure out where to put the airplane so that when you punch the green light on, whatever falls out of the back of your airplane hits where you want it to on the face of the earth. Um, Extremely challenging,
Yeah.
um, but phenomenal. Just such a great time. That
How was it being on the flip side of the pair drops?
It was awesome because
Yeah.
it how many times did we all get put in the wrong place, right? So we landed in like you remember the one really bad AWADS drop we had, adverse weather aerial delivery system, and we were the paratroopers out of the back. I can't remember who it was that went into it might have been John Hosey that went into the pig farm. But I mean, like up to his neck and shit, which he deserved. Anyway, I'll just put it right out there. Hosey deserved that. Um, I got a bone to pick with you, JD. When you interviewed John Hosey, you weren't a good enough podcast host to get the story out of him about our first meeting,
Oh
which
yeah, I missed
involved
it.
a log.
Correct the
And
record. Let's go. Let's hear it.
yeah, I'm the chief of Santa Val, which is Officer One. This new guy Hosey shows up, and he is larger than life and this ginormous personality. And I'm not quite sure if he's mentally retarded or just so out of control that he's hard to. I mean, you can't put him in a box. He's just out there all the time. You know, the first person that probably should have had Adderall. You know, if ADHD was a thing then, and you know, super strong, super fit, a lot smarter than he let on. But he was always up to something, doing something. And we go on an exercise. I mean, he barely even showed up. I think he did make this story that he was when he first showed up. Days later, we were gone down to South Carolina on an exercise, and I still have not really met the guy, and I'm walking through the woods from one part of our encampment to the top, and I hear this crack, and I turn my head in time to see a piece of wood nail me like straight in the forehead, and just lays me flat out.
Oh.
And I'm just laying down. It didn't knock me out, but I am laying down. I'm flat on my back, trying to get my senses back, trying to get my vision to clear. And over top of me is Hosey's face. And, sorry. I hop up. He was born, so he had a little habit of picking up logs. He wanted to find the heaviest log that he could pick up and break up against the tree. So that was his pastime, was picking up ginormous logs that I probably could not lift and swinging them to where he could break it. And he just happened to hit a smaller limb like a baseball bat, and that thing can spiral and just laid me right out. that was our very first meeting. But we became very, very close friends. One more quick Hosey story.
Okay.
It's my final jump at Fort Bragg before I TCS. Oh no, I'm sorry, it was my re-enlistment jump, and it was going to be a fun jump. Well, a couple of guys, when you do fun jumps, they will still go get all their equipment because they need to log in equipment to get a certain number of jumps to get your master wings. And Hosey said, "Hey, I'm going to be late. Don't leave without me. I got to go get my gear." I was like, "Hosey, dude, I can't hold the plane." He goes, "No, I'll be there. I was like, "All right." So we're doing JMPIs on the back of the C-130, at Green Ramp, and it's just blistering hot, ungodly hot. And here comes Hosey, I'm coming! And we turn and look, and from where you park your car and come through the gate and access point through the red line, here comes Hosey with he is full 100% full kit up, to include a weapons bag that I think he had a baseball bat or something in there to simulate his M16. And he's got a rucksack like you would not believe. And he's holding it going, chug. I'm like, what the hell are you doing? All cammied up, sweating like a pig. And he shows up going, I'm here. I was like, get your damn parachute on. So he gets the parachute on, and I go to lift this ruck. I swear to God, JD, I almost could not lift the damn thing. It's like, what is in here? He said, equipment. Oh. So he holds it up. We do the whole thing. We jump. We get on the drop zone. Colonel Troy, our detachment commander's there waiting for me. We do the whole re-enlistment ceremony. And I hear this. And I turn around and look. Hosey has his rucksack open. He has jumped in a case of beer on ice. And he holds up a can of beer and goes, "Congratulations, Sergeant Monroe," and hands me a beer.
That is awesome.
No way.
Oh, yeah. I love it.
Yeah,
that's great.
He was quite the character. So you got a good one when you got him on the podcast.
Yeah, he left that one out.
Yeah, I know he did. He also didn't tell you about. I think he was the perpetrator of us getting banned from using Air Force ambulance support for our jumps.
Oh, yeah.
Because somebody took over the base, and some safety dude went batshit crazy, and if they were going to support our night jumps, then we had to take these new things called chem sticks, and we had to break, as before we jumped out of the airplane, you had to break the chem stick, have it underneath your reserve parachute, so that the medics could count the number of jumpers coming down to make sure that they had everybody.
Uh-huh.
Hosey takes a ankle weight. You remember, like, you put the weights around your ankles to,
Yeah.
strengthen your legs while you run. He takes an ankle weight and takes a chem stick and tapes it to the ankle weight and jumps out of the airplane and still has one chem stick with him. So, and as soon as he jumps out, he chucks the ankle weight, and all the medics see this green light going.
Oh no!
Out comes the ambulance. All the lights are coming on. Everybody's going crazy. We all meet back up on as the PI, waiting for the bus to come get us. And what the hell's going on? Medics show up, matted and fire. I mean, just freaking livid. Holding up.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, yeah.
I thought somebody burned in.
That was a Hosey.
Man.
Yep.
Oh.
He
left those out.
Trying to think if there's anything else that really stood out. There was another thing with the, be a good guy, really work hard, do your best. Folks will usually take care of, you usually work out. We had a guy working in our office at TACP, a lieutenant colonel, that got put there because there was nowhere else for him to go. And he just needed to get his ticket punched for his headquarters tour so that he could go on and make his, make full bird. He was a Air Force Thunderbird pilot, solo. He'd done everything perfect his whole life, I guess. But now he comes to work in this job, and he's a F-16 guy. He's never done a day of TAC Air in his life and had no clue what we did in the TAC Air community. We also had the EC-130 guys in our office. He knew nothing about them. Man, he was just largely a giant pain in the ass and a thorn in my side. Really, he and I did not get along well. And I had to rewrite the regulation on 50-3 on parachuting. And in that was the perfect time that I submitted a package up that allowed our guys to get 100 or fewer free fall. I think free fall pay, I think, was 110 and static line was 83. But this would, the package got approved by the military, but it never got approved within TAC. Rewriting TAC Reg 50-3 would now authorize our guys to get what they deserve. And which was already approved in the DOD. Man, this guy, Lieutenant Colonel, all you're doing is game in the system. You're just trying to find a way to bilk people out of money. Yeah, I'm redlining that. And he redlined through it. It's like, I did everything I could think of to get this guy to understand. I convinced other of his fellow officers to talk to him. Nothing was going to make him change. So I went back, showed him the reg, and he checked that page. Like, all right, signed off on it. Go back to my desk, take that page out, put the page in that had the 110 back in it, and then package it all up nice and neat and send it off to the publisher. Who's ever going to know, right? I'm at a jump fest with Chief Suarez, and guy comes out, some airman is out there in blue, light blue shirt, and running around going, I'm looking for Sergeant Monroe, Staff Sergeant Monroe. And you can hear the guy, and I go walking over to him, like, I'm thinking something really bad is going on. He's like, sir, Sergeant, you got a phone call at the command post. Ooh. So hop in my car, drive to the Shaw command post, go in there. They got the message for me, call this Lieutenant Colonel, this number. So I call him, and he's like, you switched the page, didn't you? Yes, sir, I did. It was the right thing to do. He said it was not the right thing to do. Report to me first thing Monday morning in your blues. 0800. Yes, sir. So I hung up the phone. Like, man, I flirted with it my whole career by this point.
Yeah.
Finally gonna get a some form of serious non-judicial punishment. Go head back out to the jump fest, and there's Colonel Stevenson. Colonel Harry C. Stevenson was a FAC in Vietnam, legendary guy, super individual. I mean, he did everything right as far as we were concerned. Idiot romance. Absolutely loved the guy. He would come jump with us. He would drink beer with us. He was out on the range controlling air. He was in everything. And I don't know how it was that I came on his radar, but we both happened to be walking out of the building at the same time. He's like, Sergeant Monroe, how was your day? I said, it just went to hell, sir. And he's like, oh, really? Like, I'm heading out to the jump desk. Come ride with me. Like, okay. So I get in the command car with him and tell him the whole story while I'm out there. He goes, that was really bad. That was really a huge mistake on your part. And I said, I just don't see it that way, sir. He said, I know you don't, but you got to understand what you did was wrong. I said, that I can agree with that. Yes, sir. He goes, all right, well, listen, the things usually will work out. Just enjoy the jump fest. Go talk to your boss Monday. Like, yes, sir. 8 o'clock Monday morning, he's not there. In fact, he doesn't come to work all day. Nobody knows where he is. Tuesday, he also doesn't show. Wednesday, he finally comes back to work. There's a whole side story behind this guy's having a little crisis of his own. But anyway, he never said a word to me.
Really?
Yeah. So my best guess, I have no way to prove it.
I was going to ask, but yeah, what?
Colonel Stevenson called him.
Yeah.
There's no doubt in my mind.
So what was the side thing? What was that? Like, was he out? Was it just a coincidence that he was out, or did he just pissed?
He basically threw a tantrum and was angry because he was having to work in an office that didn't fit where he wanted to be. So he took his ball and went home. Again, as an officer, you can resign your commission and walk out the door if you don't have any, active duty service commitment. And he left. So he basically said, if you won't give me what I want, I'm leaving. And sure enough, the Air Force, the headquarters TAC bent over. You can't have a Thunderbird pilot not happy. So they gave him whatever the hell he wanted, and he came back to work. Was out of our office by the end of the week. So I was happy. He didn't care.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, that guy. I learned a lot of lessons. You can learn a lot from people by what do you emulate and what don't you emulate, right? So I learned a lot about how not to handle people working under that guy for a few months.
Yeah, I bet.
But it fed well into a career that I could have never seen coming. So the fact that the injuries that I got that I thought I'd come back from so well. That really was starting to come back to play a bit. And I recognized about the time that I'm graduating OTS that, probably a good thing that I'm not, humping a rock and hopping and popping anymore. So this whole C-130 thing, and I couldn't have landed at Pope at a better time. So I got my number one aircraft, number one base, 130s back to Pope, right back, right there with Fort Bragg. Right when Desert Storm hit.
Okay.
So I was driving from Little Rock to Pope to sign in when the wing deployed to go to and support a Desert Shield, Desert Storm. So I showed up to an empty base and basically helped work everything behind the scenes to get those guys what they needed, welcome them back, and then start the rotation back to, we would send aircraft over every few months. We'd swap airplanes out. So my very earliest operational days in the HERC were all Desert Shield, Desert Storm rather, flying around Kuwait, flying all over the Middle East, flying across the Atlantic Ocean. Which in those days, the C-130 Navigator, we didn't even have an INS, an inertial navigation system. We had everything was old analog, analog rather. Measuring devices. So we had a distance measuring equipment, DME, and we had some other things, but mostly what we had was celestial. So we literally still put a sextant up, took shots of the moon and the sun and stars, and came down and plotted them on our charts. And my first trip across the Atlantic, I'm a baby nav, so I have to have a babysitter. So a guy that became one of my very good friends was my instructor, and he climbs up onto the top bunk as soon as we take off, and he's fast asleep. And he's like, you got this. You're really good at this. We're good. I'm like, okay. So we start flying across the Atlantic, and it's a long flight. And I'm doing the math, and I'm basically the only one left awake on the cockpit. As the, one pilot would sleep while the other pilot would stay awake. And so the pilot that was supposed to be staying awake was nodding off. And thank God it was a friend of mine that was a co-pilot, because I realized I have screwed up. I did a little math error, and we are heading off course, and not by a little. I mean, we are rapidly chugging off into the hinterlands of the Atlantic Ocean, never to be seen again.
Oh my God.
So I stopped and figured out. I was like, okay, I can do this. I can do this. I go back and double check my math 2 or 3 times. 100%. I got it right now. All right, here's what I need to do. So I'm trying to figure out, how do I do this without letting the whole crew know that I have really screwed up. So I go up to the co-pilot, and he is almost asleep. And guy named Rock, so I tap Rock on the shoulder. Yeah, I'm awake. Hey, Rock. I tap his headset, and he moves, one ear off. I don't want to wake anybody else up. Can you give me 5 degrees to the left? Yeah, sure. So he takes autopilot and adjusts it 5 degrees left. And I go back to my desk and look around the corner and trying to see when his head starts to nod again. So as soon as his head starts nodding a couple more times, I go back up and I wait to a certain number of minutes to make sure I can plot it correctly on the chart. I tap him on the shoulder again. Like, Bob, yeah. Can you give me 5 degrees left? Oh, I thought I did. No. Oh, I'm sorry. He gave me another. So I did this for the better part of an hour until I finally got the airplane to go back up and then turn back in. Sun comes up. Everybody's starting to wake up. They dial in the Prestwick or whichever we were heading to in Ireland, and boom, the needle just points straight up. They're like, oh, good job, Matt. Huge mistake.
Oh man.
So we got our first GPSs when we were over in Desert Storm. I guess like 3 years after it turned into Southern Watch by that point. But they were these ginormous rubber encased things. We call them the Fisher Price My First GPS. I think they called it a plugger, right? That you have these big giant buttons that you push on, and that was wild. So ended up in an era where everything was still paper maps and doing stuff with sextants, and it was quite an interesting time. So.
Yeah, no doubt. Yeah, I mean, people I couldn't even imagine it now. I mean, I'm sure the people that are flying now. I mean, you may or may not know this, but do people who are learning to do that job now, do they learn both ways, or are they just like, all right, this is how we're doing it with the INS? And
everything is all computer, which is smart, right? So why not take the best, most capable systems that you've got, and the systems that we have now. There's 5 different global positioning systems in the world, right, between China and the European conglomerate and GNSS, the Russian one. And the systems we've got now basically will take all of them and be able to give you a fix that is incredibly accurate. So it doesn't matter which systems are down or which ones are up. These things will find a satellite out there somewhere.
Okay. Yeah,
so even with that, you got to remember garbage in, garbage out. Right? So you make you put the wrong coordinates in, it's still going to take you where you don't think you're supposed to go. So.
Right.
I'm being a Herc now. Loved going to. Hope was such a great place because it was a home of the C-130s. We had 3 C-130 squadrons at one time on the base, a humongous C-130 wing. And then the Air Force gets this stupid idea of we're going to have a composite wing. All of these, so the C-130s are a tactical airlift. They're not like the 141s or the C-5s. So the 130s are going to come over to Air Combat Command, not Tactical Air Command anymore. It's now Air Combat Command. And the 130s are going to come over to Air Combat Command because that's going to be good for officer progression. Being a 130 guy in a wing full of fighter pilots, you can see how that's going to go with qualification for promotion.
Right.
So our base, Hope Air Force Base, became A-10s, F-16s, and C-130s. all on the same base.
Yeah.
And it was there was a lot of rivalry going on,
Oh,
a
I
lot of
bet.
and by this point, I'd started flying a special ops mission at Pope called Sol 2, Special Ops Low Level Phase 2, which was basically AFSOC. AFSOC knew that they didn't have enough aircraft to be able to support all the missions, and sometimes they needed help that didn't require the supreme capabilities of what an MC-130 Talon 2 could give you. So they took slick 130s and really highly trained the crews. I mean, it was really tough. And we had tolerances like plus or minus 5 seconds on your green light, and your drop parameters had to be Nat's ass, and it was just. But the crew the training and everything he did was just phenomenal. So anyway, side story with that. The Sol 2 building, which was its own little small building off by itself, which it needed to be because basically the whole building was a skiff.
Hmm.
You had to have a TS clearance. The minute that you walked in the building, you were inside of a classified operation. Um, well, they took that building away from us and gave it to the A-10 squadron. Really pissed us off. Uh, a buddy of mine happened to have a roommate from Clemson when these two guys were going through RTC together. That his roommate from college was an A-10 pilot. So they would sit around and talk, and Nelson learns that the A-10s, when they are ready to pull short final and come around and land, they would know when to start their turn because they would roll on, look down, and when they could see this building that stood out all by itself, impossible to miss, when they saw that building, that's when they knew to turn. So Nelson comes to me one afternoon and said, how about we do a little morale project? Like, cool, I'm in. What do you want to do? If the A-10 guys look down on their building every single time that they land, our squadron was the 41st Tactical Aerial Squadron, the Black Cats.
Hmm.
I want to paint black paw prints on top of that building so that every time they turn and look down, they will see these neon green paw prints. And being a Clemson guy, he had all the stencils in the world of tiger
Oh,
paw.
yeah.
So he goes down to a construction cardboard company and gets his 5-foot tiger paw printout. So he gets this huge printout, and we ask another guy to go and get us a certain paint. So everybody had a little job to do. So we meet up. I try to convince my wife to come be our getaway driver, and she's 8 months pregnant. It's like, hell no, I'm not going to be a part of this. New Year's Eve, by the way.
Oh, man.
We figured nobody would be out. The cops would be busy with all the drunk drivers. They'll never find us. So we
Sure.
climbed up there, and the idiot that went to get our paint couldn't get the right color in a bucket, but he could find it in spray paint. I'm sorry,
Uh-huh.
the other way around. He couldn't find it in the spray paint, so he bought us buckets of paint and brushes. So we sneak across the road, climb up on top of this building. You can't use a ladder because they'll see a ladder. So we have to shinny up and pull up and scramble over, and then we've got to grab the rope and haul everything up. And we lay the first template down, and we open up the can of paint, and I've got this brush, and it's and it's a crushed gravel roof. The entire roof is loose crushed gravel. So it's not like just painting. So you, instead of painting, you had to take the front brush and go soak it in the paint, and it was
Oh,
taking
man.
forever. And we're about halfway through, I think, our second paw print. Then you would do one paw print, flip it over, do the next one, and all of a sudden, it was a really low ceiling. The clouds were really, really low. It was it was getting ready to rain, and all of a sudden, all the clouds just go blue, blue, blue. Well, what is that? And then you hear individuals on the roof, stand up and put your hands over your head.
No way.
And I look at Nelson and he goes, let's run. No! We got an 18-year-old with an M16 down there. I'm not running. Like,
Right.
game's over. Let's go. So we stand up, put our hands up, and, what are you doing up there? And Nelson, without skipping a beat, looks down and goes, decorating for Christmas. And the NCO, there was about like 4 cop cars out there. He just busts laughing. He goes, all right, grab your, whatever you got up there, get down. So we hand everything down, and we go over to the guy's car, and he grabs our IDs, reads us our rights, and luckily they didn't cuff us. Calls our squadron commander, wakes him up in the middle of the night, tells him what's going on, and when he identified who the 2 people were, the squadron commander, great guy, but to us, he was a nightmare because he was always so damn hard, so strict on us. So, I mean, push, like a little Patton. When he heard the names, there was a pause, and he read me those names again. So he read them back and look at the pictures, and then look at their faces. And Sergeant, sir, it's them. He's like, huh. Monroe lives on base. Tell them to go to Monroe's quarters and have him call me. Release him to my reconnaissance. He goes, okay. So we go back to our house, and both Nelson and I had come out on the captain's list. And in the officer world, when you get promoted, until you pin on, all it takes is for the commander to red line, put a red ink, draw a line through your name on the promotion orders, and you don't get promoted. So it's all red line, right? So we go back, and the colonel just chews us up one side down the other, and asks Nelson if he understood what a red line is. And he said, no, sir. He goes, Monroe, you know what it is. I know you know. I said, yes, sir. Just explain it to Nelson. So I explained to him what's wrong. He said, oh, by the way, it wasn't New Year's Eve. I'm sorry. It was coming up on Christmas. That's why I decorated for Christmas. But the colonel was holding his famous open, shoot, what is it when you have a party and you just drop by?
Like a roof stomp or something, or?
Yeah, no, it's like so he's having basically it's a party where instead of the party starts at 7, it's, the colonel will receive you from 4 until 8. And then you just kind of, it's an open door thing. So you just go up and you come in, pay your respects, say hi, you do the grip and grin thing. Well, I'm not going because my wife's 8 months pregnant, right? So I've got to, boy, she's having bad contractions. So I'd already made all my excuses and guaranteed I wasn't going. Yeah. Colonel Fitzpatrick is like, and boys, we'll see you at my house at 3 tomorrow. Yes, sir. So Nelson and I got to be little stewards to go help hand out, set up, decorate for the house, hand out all the years later. I mean, Colonel Fitzpatrick just chewed us up one side down the other. Years later, we're gone our separate ways. I'm now stationed at Little Rock. He comes in to be the group commander, and my wife and his wife are on the bowling team. And when she heard my wife's name, she's like, Monroe, were you guys, you were in our squadron of folk? And she said, yes, ma'am. My husband's is Mitch Monroe. Said, Joseph just loves him. Oh. I don't think you got the right guy. She says, no. He was the one with the paint, the painting the building. And Catherine said, yeah, your husband really tore him up. He thought that was great. No, I mean, you couldn't do anything to these guys. They don't make waste that they come in and take over your base. But man, Colonel Fitzpatrick thought we were. So that was pretty funny.
He couldn't overtly, endorse it, but on the backside, he was like proud of you guys.
Oh, he was. He really thought that was just absolutely shit hot. So it was pretty funny. A lot of good stories about Fitzpatrick. Yep, but good stuff.
Do you want to talk about? I'd love to hear about like Haiti and Bosnia and all that stuff. If you want to touch on that stuff, or is that someplace you want to go?
So it's funny. I said this in my retirement speech, which is funny that getting ready for this, I went back and reread that. Everything that I really succeeded at in my whole 35 years and 10 months in the uniform, the basis of it really was Fort Bragg. That Det 1 507th with Jimmy Felton, keeping me from ruining my career before I even had one. Papa Joe providing the mentoring, learning how to always be looking ahead, how to prepare, how to plan, how to execute when the time came. Um, Years later, I'm in the 130 world, and we're doing things like going over to Saudi, and now I'm the chief of combat tactics in our squadron. So we're setting up, planning things while we're over, in the desert. And everything just really came natural. It was just like one extension after another of all of it. And we get deployed to go to, we deployed to Germany in support of Operation Provide Promise. That's when the Bosnians and the Serbs were going at it. And they decided to do this big humanitarian response. And the worry was that the Serbs swore that they would shoot down any aircraft that were providing aid, because as far as they were concerned, any aid was aid ultimately to help the Bosnians.
Oh yeah.
So we had, I had 57 millimeter shoot up through our formation one night. We had man-pad threats and all the stuff that we didn't take real seriously, because when's the last time an aircraft was shot down by a man-pad? That hadn't happened in decades. Well, the Germans lost one. I think it was a 222 that got shot down. And the next day we happened to fly and we could see the wreckage. And that was a huge ass wake-up call. And I can remember going into the chief of wing tactics at Ramstein, or the Rhein-Main rather, 37th, and a major named Tip Stinnett. And I walked up to him and said, I don't think I've been taking this seriously. And he said, well, now's really a really damn good time to start, don't you think? I said, yes, sir, I really do. And I think like the next 5 hours, we sat and talked and about, the best way to avoid this. And when we're building these formations, because we had to do sometimes 11 aircraft in a formation. There was 9 American 130s, and we have a pair of German C-160s that would be tail end. And it would, lead them over to do these high altitude airdrops. So we're dropping rations from 10,000 feet that would just, litter everywhere to keep the people from starving. But there was a lot of math that went into how do you drop something from 10,000 feet, and figure out how do you figure out the winds. Like I said, once you lose something leaves the airplane, the second that it loses the forward momentum from the aircraft, now it's just in a state of free fall. But whatever winds are out there are going to really jack it up, because it's not like under a parachute or something. So we did. We came up with all kinds of crazy ideas, and we finally came up with one where we had the Marine Corps F-18s would go in ahead of us, and they would fly on the deck to a certain part of an area, and then go vertical straight up, and they would take wind readings.
Really?
And then they would record them and radio them back to wherever our op center was, and that's how we would factor in what our computed air release point would look like. It was just all kinds of weird stuff that went on with that one, but it's kind of weird to look at and think of all the aid that we dropped, all the air lands that we did. We would do an air land into Sarajevo, and we knew that they had man pads. Well, the interesting thing about the man pads that they had that we knew were near the airfield was that they had a very short battery life. So we figured that if they would turn the man pad on when they heard the engines rev up. So we started a tactic of, when it was time to take off, we would rev the engines up, pop the brakes, and about halfway down the runway, we'd do a high-speed abort and slam the brakes on, bring the engines into reverse, taxi down, turn around, and then take off a wheel the opposite direction. So to try to help with the man pad, if there were any out there, they would have, the battery would have been dead by this point. Such weird ideas on how to make this thing come to pass. Do the whole full circle thing. Years and years and years later, I'm retired and I have to get surgery on a wrist, and the doctor is obviously not born and raised U.S. I couldn't quite place the accent, and so we start talking one day at one of the appointments, and I asked the nurse after he had left, and she said, "Oh, he's Bosnian. Actually, he was in the war when he was very young. I'm like, you got to be kidding.
No
So
way.
the next appointment, I bring in a whole bunch of photographs that I took of the airport in Sarajevo and when we were on the ground, and from just to kind of show them all the UN High Commission for refugee patches. And I start showing him these things, and he actually starts to tear up. And he
Wow.
said, I was a med student, and it was my job with the other med students that we would run from the hospital to the airport to get food to bring it back to the hospital. You said, the airlift that the Americans did was the only thing that kept the doctors and the patients in the hospital alive. So it's
Wow.
amazing to figure out that I brought in the aid that helped this guy, and now 30 years later he's the one giving me the use of my hand back. So
That's amazing.
isn't that
That
great?
really is amazing.
Super.
My God.
Just crazy how those things can come together like that.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Wait, where were you getting the surgery? Like where were we at the point? Where was he a doctor? Where was he practicing medicine?
He's still practicing medicine he's a professor at the Medical University of South Carolina.
Oh, okay.
Yep, in Columbia.
That is awesome.
In fact, I have to go get it done again. So time to go clean up again after a while. But I think probably the most interesting contingency deployment. I did the 130 thing for a while, and had a great time with that. I hit 20 years in service. I knew I was coming up for major. I knew the Air Force wasn't going to promote me. Why would you, right? I mean, I can retire. So you're going to promote me, and I'm going to say thanks. I'll take my bigger check and leave now.
Sure.
Not a good idea.
Yeah.
Well, they did, and which is kind of a funny story because I was a baby exec. He had two executive officers for this wing commander, the general, and I had to learn the job underneath the senior exec. And then John Allen, went on to his merry way, and then I took over as the executive officer. One of the last days that John was there was when the promotion was released, and he called me in and said, "Hey, Monroe, there's a packet waiting for you down at CBPO, so MPF." So I ran down, picked it up. The guy said, "I'm not sure I can hand this to you. This is the promotion release for major." And I said, "Well, it's sealed, right?" He goes, "Yeah." Okay. So I take it and give it to the commander, and the wing commander standing there, the vice wing commander, kind of great guy Mark Reese, and John Allen, the senior exec, they're all standing there. And General Gratian opens it up and looks through and goes, "Huh, like, you may want to see this, son." And he hands me the papers. My name's not there. So, like I thought, I was going to be passed over for major, so it's time to retire. And I said, "Well," and then they all bust out laughing. They had the guys at the MPF line through the orders, take my name off of a sheet basically, and then reprint it. So just pulling my chain a little bit.
Man.
So I go on to
Bunch of jerks.
I make major. I go down to Air Command and Staff College. The major that was in charge of tactics at the wing tips the net and provide promise. And when I first started really understanding, getting my doctoral in how to be an airlift navigator, this guy has been selected to go stand up a new wing where you're going to take a group called the Tanker Airlift Control Element. Basically, it's a forward deployed command post. So anywhere in the world that you're going to have a large airlift or air refueling operation, you've got this Tanker Airlift Control Element that's going to land, set up operations, and now they do everything. They are the aerial port, they're the intel, they're base, force protection around the aircraft. They provide the fuel, maintenance, everything. So you take an entire wing, put it into about 80 people, and then send them anywhere in the world. And they took that concept and said, we're going to make it more combat capable make it leaner, make it faster deployed, bring in characteristics of rapid deployment force. So I'm at Air Command and Staff College, and I get a phone call from now Colonel Stinnett, and and he explained exactly what we was doing. He said, I'd like to come to McGuire and help me do this. Like, that would be awesome. So I left the flying world and went to go do airbase opening stuff, which was phenomenal. So again, everything back to Bragg. Now we're taking units and going, okay, instead of being ready to deploy, as in, you've got your cuffs, kind of prepared. No, you've got hours to have your bags packed. And then when you get the notice, you got 4 hours from a phone call. If you're on alert, you get 4 hours from the phone call to when you report into the unit, and you don't know if you're going to be back in 3 days or 3 months. And
Wow.
that was going to be your life. And I think I went 300 days deployed or TDY in a 1 year period. I mean, we were just gone all the time, but we were trained. We were figuring out how to do this, and a lot of it was the basics of the rapid deployment force right back from Fort Bragg. That how do you set up the division readiness brigade, and how do those guys respond? And we had a couple of guys that used to be in AFSOC with the MCs and AC-130s, so they brought their expertise in with it, and we just conglomerated everything and came up with some pretty interesting ideas and new way to do business. And that turned into when we took over Afghanistan, Operation Enduring Freedom. They kind of carved the country up into sectors, and each NATO nation had an area that they were responsible for. And the Italians had the area where Herat Airfield was. And so to bring the entire Italian force in, we took 37 of us and deployed us into a Afghanistan airport. And by airport, I mean it had a control tower. It had the house at the bottom of the control tower where the guy that owned the airport lived, and he was the air traffic controller that had no training whatsoever. And then you had the airport and a parking ramp. That was it. There was no fence. There was no electricity. There was a generator to the tower. That was it. So on this asphalt piece of runway in the middle of nowhere, going, holy shit, we are really hanging it out, because the city of Herat is just like right over there, and there's a lot of people in that town that don't like us. And we had 2 OSI agents that were part of our deployment unit, and so they would go into town and kind of get the pulse of things. And but we had to live on the edge for a little bit, and luckily it turned out great. We never had to, never got fired upon, never had any sort of an incident there. Did you have
any security element at all? Like who? Like any cops or?
We had 12 security forces.
Oh my God, you guys are really hanging it out there, man.
Big time, and it was probably not the best idea. So come to look at it, I wonder who came up with this idea. There was a young cop named DiBiase, who's a really super cool kid, and he was really upset about something. And I was the number 2 guy on this trip, so we would take it. The lieutenant colonels would swap, who took the lead, who was number 2, and you would kind of swap it around. So I was number 2 on this trip under Mike Smith, and I go walking over to D, like he's just standing there looking out into space. What's going on with you? He's like an airman first class defender. Like, so there's like 6 million landmines in this country. Like, oh yeah. Well, we were told there's probably landmines anywhere that's not paved. There could be a landmine. Okay. I can't get over thinking about all the landmines out there. I said, huh. So I bent down and picked up a rock and chucked it. And he jumps and goes, what are you doing? I was like, huh. I didn't go off. Let's try another one. So we spent like the next hour throwing rocks out into the field around the airport. Then nothing ever went boom. I said, I think we're okay.
That's one way to do it.
Yeah. So years later, I was a group commander. I had no idea that this guy was on the base. He was working for the main base, not part of our contingency response group anymore. And I come to work one day, and my secretary got a really weird look on her face. And I said, Kathy, what's up? She goes, You had a visitor. Okay. He left something on your desk? Yeah. Okay. So I walk in, and there's a rock just sitting on my desk. And I said, I know who that's from. So,
Oh. I mean, when you guys are out there, I could. There's so few of you, and you're in such a vulnerable position. I could imagine there was like some pretty good bonds made between you. You know what I mean?
without a doubt, there really were. We had, and it was such a perfect group. There was no way you could do a by name assignment. Like there was just too many people. But somehow the people that they selected to come be part of this group especially at the beginning, um, were just all absolutely perfect for it. We had one or two
Yeah.
misfits that had to get moved out, but by and large they were just amazing.
Nice.
And I had a boss that, again, he was a super hard worker, but his management style and mine are just completely different.
Yeah.
This guy believed that it was not only important that he won; it was more important that you lost.
Oh,
His,
geez.
his leadership style was, basically his boot on your throat, and that's victory. And that's kind of how he ran everything. And that was just, that did not set well with me. And we had some run-ins, which, full bird colonel to lieutenant colonel, you can guess how that's going to go.
Right.
But he was good at hearing me out. So, he at least would give me the opportunity to come in and close the door and we could have that conversation. And he pulled me in one afternoon and said, I think you need to leave. And I said, I haven't even bitched about anything. He laughed. He goes, no, no. He said, we've been talking it over, and the only way that you're going to, get noticed, and to get picked up as a squadron commander, try to make colonel, that kind of thing, is if you do a 365, do a 1-year TDY to the war. And I said, okay. And he said, well, go home, talk it over with your wife, and then, we could go online and you could go kind of find your job. So I checked checked in with the family, all's good, come back, figure out this chief of a crisis action planning team. Sounded good. I'll do that. So I get picked for that job and head over there, and I wound up working for an Air Force 2-star that was an ALO during Black Hawk Down.
Wow.
He was assigned to JSOC. He wasn't with the Rangers. He was with JSOC, and he was running and gunning on the streets. And he winds up working for a new 4-star by the name of Petraeus.
Wow.
So years later, Petraeus becomes the director of the CIA, and the Air Force 2-star that was my boss becomes his deputy.
Really?
Yeah. So it's kind of interesting to see how that all kind of blended together.
Yeah.
I just made the best friends. We ran this crisis action planning team, and our job would be, you'd come into work and you'd get a task that, you got to build a plan to satisfy whatever this objective turned out to be. And then we put our heads together, and it was all Air Force, Army, Navy, Marine, and we'd sit down and come up with a plan, and you have to, build it out the right way and then pitch it to the all the generals and get the approval to execute. It was a really different world compared to anything else I had done, but once again, I truly understood that team's not a 4-letter word. If you're going to succeed, there's a team behind you that's going to get you there.
Sure.
And that was, all the success that I had at Bragg, the successes, despite trying to kill my career at Langley at Headquarters TACP, all the shenanigans pulled when I was flying and hurt. There was always that team that was there to make sure that you succeeded, you did well, you had the support you needed. And Baghdad was exactly the same way with that. And in fact, I'm still very close with. There were 4 of us that became super close friends. We lost one of them. We lost Mario. He was a Marine helicopter pilot, and he got shot down. But super great guy.
Oh man.
It was on that trip that was that's the last time that I saw David Gray. So
Okay.
DG was so at Bragg. We had several guys that had done the seeming impossible. Like they'd gone to Ranger School, they did really well. So Recondo School, Ranger School, these guys are killing it. Well, the wing, 507 Tech Air Control Wing, says they want to figure out, can we prep other ROMADs so that they can have a better chance of graduating these schools. So Dan Hannikin and the guys come up with, I think they called it PRESS, Pre-Ranger Seer Survival School, whatever it turned out to be. But so we get together, and I got asked to come help teach a couple things. I think it was land nav or vehicle nav, something. But David Gray was one of the TDY guys that came to that school, and for whatever reason, he
Really?
and I struck up a conversation, got to know each other with that. Years later, I'm doing that contingency response group at McGuire, and David Gray now has become an officer, and he was airfield ops, I think. But he wasn't in my squadron. He was in a sister squadron. But I'd forgotten all about him, and I'm at a wing staff meeting, and some dude on the other side of the conference room is just eyeballing me. I'm like, this is getting a little uncomfortable. Every time I look over there, he's just staring at me. I'm like, this is getting a little uncomfortable. So when the meeting was over, I hopped up, and one of them was like, "Can I help you with something?" He said, "You don't remember me." Like, I certainly do not. He's like, and they told me where. I was like, oh my God, you got to be kidding me. So it was really cool. I got to help guide a little bit of his career development. And I get a call one day that he has gone back to tech school to be a 17 Lima, and was asking if I would come down and be his graduating class guest speaker. So that was really cool to get to go down there and get to see him again, get to see him graduate and get his beret with his captain's rank on it. And, he made a really cool shadow box for me that all those things I told you about that I gave copies, I gave all the originals to the schoolhouse. Well, DG and his class got permission to go into the history box stuff, pull a bunch of it out and make copies, and he made a really nice shadow box that has copies of all, the note from Beth Unglesby and a beret with the flashing crest and a little nice plaque from the class, and it's really super cool. So
that's
one
awesome.
Of my treasures for sure.
Yeah. Oh, that's cool.
Good.
Yeah, it's a shame. I think his anniversary just came up recently, I believe. Yeah, I think I saw something about that.
Yeah, just last week, I think.
Yeah. Yeah, it's a shame.
If I'm not mistaken. Yep.
Everybody I talked to, everybody that knew him, I didn't know him personally. I never met him, but everybody that I knew who knew him just had nothing but good stuff to say about him. Like, he was just a phenomenal dude.
We were going through someplace and in Iraq, and we were out on one of the fobs, and I hear Colonel Monroe. There's nobody that knows me around here, so I turn around and look, and it was Major Gray, and it was like, oh my God, what are you doing over here? So we sat, we talked for a while, and took me to the TOC, introduced me to the brigade commander, and showed me how things are so different than when we were around, and it was probably, I think, like just a few months after that when he got killed.
Yeah.
So, absolute tragedy.
It's like another coincidence, though, in your career that like is just one in a million chance that he would be there.
Yeah,
it's
absolutely.
Crazy.
Yep. I treasure that memory of walking in and seeing him. But that, the colonel was absolutely right that I needed something to get me noticed, and working for General Tchaikovsky and General Petraeus for that year in Baghdad, that got me enough of a push to where I got picked up as a squadron commander. And as much as I loved being a ROMAD, as much as I loved being a HERC the two very best years of my life, bar none, the 2 years that I was a squadron commander. So I ran a combat training school, and it was the whole purpose of the school. It was actually a security forces unit, but in fact we were considered technically we were a small security forces squadron. So we had
Oh, okay.
54% of our cadre were security forces, just to keep it legit. The other 46% were every AFSC the Air Force had to be represented in the squadron, because our job was to, the cops had their things to do, like Phoenix, all the pre-deployment exercises for going to Iraq and Afghanistan. But then they also had the Air Force Air Marshal called Phoenix Ravens, and they had the Ravens. So we
Okay.
had that schoolhouse there. But then all the rest of us, the job was to train airmen before they deployed. So we did all the pre-deployment training, and it really helps when you're sitting there. You've got a comptroller who's never done a thing in her whole career other than sit and count money, doing her job at Wing Finance, and now she's
Right.
got to put on battle rattle and understand how to get in and out of Humvee, and what happens when you get hit by an IED, and how to use your firearm, how to actually point the M16 at somebody and pull the trigger. So we had
Yeah.
simulations. So it was like paintball, but damn, those things hurt. That
Yeah.
little blue ball coming at you, mock snot. My wife always knew when we had a class on the ground, I'd come home looking like I had the measles. I got shot to hell. Everybody would pull op for duty so that we could go out and help, let the instructors do their job, and we'd be the bad guys who'd go get lit up. And, but man, what a great squadron.
Well, I'm sure your background had a lot to do. Did they pick you for that because of your enlisted time, and they're like, okay, you got this background in TACP, and
I
you
think
know a little
so.
bit about ground stuff, or a lot about ground stuff?
Yeah, I really do, because I really believe that was a strong push to it. And the best commander I ever had was the 2-star in charge of the Expeditionary Center. And that man, just absolutely legendary boss. But when he sat me down, he's like, your squadron's about to get really busy. Your squadron is really broke. And in short order, you've got to find a way. The previous squadron commander had a closed door policy published, written on the bulletin
Jeez.
board. At commander's calls, you were not allowed to ask a question that had not been first printed, submitted to the senior NCO or ops officer, or OIC if you were a officer, and then vetted before given to her so that she could research it, have the right answer, and make sure that she could answer it appropriately.
Jeez.
Just just a nightmare. So she was the first non-security forces commander in the history of the squadron. And this squadron goes back into Vietnam. And I was the second squadron commander in the history of the squadron that was not a
Hmm.
cop. And
Oh, okay.
our boss, General Self, said, you've got to fix this. And I was like, all right. So um, met with everybody, figured out where some of my problems were. Some people had to go. Had to move some people out in order that I could get the right people in the right places to do the right things. But I remembered back to what were the things that we bonded over when we were at Bragg, right? So PT was mandatory. It's not something you blew off. And, you had
Right.
to have a damn good reason why. And that was just one of those things that was you, and everybody saw us out there doing that. Everybody knew who you were, before the days of the flash and crest. So we made physical fitness a huge deal within the squadron, and it turned into a culture of guys that would just push themselves to the nth degree. And I had a senior NCO that I had to have reassigned. That he just he was just the wrong guy. That
Yeah.
I mean, the example is that like week 2, maybe week 3, that I was in command. I get a phone call on a Friday night, and it's this senior master sergeant says, "Sir, just to let you know, I'm on top of it. We had an instructor break his ankle, and he's at the hospital. I'm on my way there now." I mean, well, wait a minute. Well, where was he when he broke his ankle? Because I knew we didn't have a class on the ground, so
Hmm.
there's nobody training, at 7 o'clock on a Friday night. And he said, no, they were horsing around. They were horsing around in the office. Like, well, were they drinking? Like, no, sir. What were they doing at 7 o'clock on a Friday night in the office? Well, I don't know, but I'll find out. Like, well, okay, I'll meet you there. So we both go into the hospital room, and the same, all the instructors that were in the room were there with him, ribbing him over, getting it. They were going over the lesson plans and how to rewrite the curriculum in order to be able to emphasize the lessons that were being learned and sent back from Iraq and Afghanistan, and how to de-emphasize stuff that really was just waste of time. And this is 7 o'clock on a Friday night. Nice. in like May. Beautiful weather, sunny, gorgeous. You'd be a fool to be at work on a Friday night. And these guys, 5 or 6 of them, were there, and it got into the question about combatives, and then that started into which is better, Muay Thai or Krav Maga, and then that turned into a fight. And one of the guys got his ankle. And I'm going, this is the best thing ever. And this guy.
That's what I was thinking, exactly, yeah.
And this DA was
awesome.
wanted to do paperwork. So I was like, no, So
no way.
Able to get him moved out of the way. Got another NCO that I really admired, brought up and made into the squadron senior enlisted advisor. Man, but those guys, they were absolutely an incredible bunch. And we had just a fantastic group. We had the squadron heritage was a black patrol cap, and that goes back into the days of Vietnam. When the Air Force came out with ABUs, and one of the reasons for ABUs was standardization, get away from all of the patches, all the crazy stuff, all the different, nothing odd was going to be authorized. Well, I told all my guys to put their black patrol caps on. That was, and we had another thing where you had an instructor tab on your black patrol cap. So, like the second week I was there, I called in the senior leaders, enlisted, and a couple of officers, and I took the instructor tab and tossed it down the table, and I said, "Says who?" Well, what say who? They weren't sure what I was asking. I said, "Who says you're an instructor? What does that mean?" Well, it just identifies that you're. I said, "No, your black hat identifies you as a cadre. Who says you are qualified and you earned the right to wear that instructor tab?" That turned into an entire qualification program where you had to meet the curriculum of AETC Master Instructor, which you never had to do before. But now these guys are getting credit. They didn't realize that also came with CCAF credits.
Right.
So we had the selection process, and they had a pretty difficult process to earn your instructor tab, which came with the whole ceremony behind, when you got pinned. So it really turned into a big pride issue. So
nice.
We'll run our ABUs. I tell everybody to put their black patrol caps on, and the 2-star calls me into his office and said, I got a call from the wing commander because we were on Fort Dix, and guys would go over to McGuire all the time. And I said, I got a call from McGuire saying, you guys are walking around ABUs with your black hats? Yes, sir. You can't do that. And I said, and I laid out all the reasons behind it, and he said, can't do that. We'll figure out a way to get it back, but for now, you've got to play by the rules. Like, okay. All I could think of was, but I put the page with the right airdrop, or free fall pay into the reg for the right reason. But damn, now I got to play by the rules again. So okay, so we played by the rules. Next week, the very next week, the Chief of Staff of the Air Force and the Chief Master Sergeant of the Air Force are making a visit to McGuire Air Force Base and the Expeditionary Center on Fort Dix. So I worked it through my 2-star and I said, sir, this is what we're going to do. And he's like, okay, you're hanging it out there, but I'll back you, go ahead. So when we took the Chief Master Sergeant of the Air Force on tour out to the range to see, because we shot every week. We shot everything. If the Air Force, if you could pull a trigger on it, we had it in our inventory because we had to train everybody on how to use it. Likewise, at the end of the year, when ammunition expired, they would send us crates of ammo, 40 millimeter grenades, the whole 9 yards, 50 cal, and we'd go out to the ranges and just burn it and just absolutely expend it. So we took the Chief Master Sergeant of the Air Force out onto the range, and I had my absolute number one NCO standing there in his ABUs with his black patrol cap with instructor tab. I mean, this guy was rock solid. And he delivered the entire brief, and the Chief Master Sergeant of the Air Force was highly impressed, coined him, and then turned to me and said, "Tell me about these hats." So I gave him the whole spiel about the history, the heritage, all the heritage and the history all the way back to Vietnam, and he said, "I like it. Send me a note." I said, "Yes, sir." And the following week, we got approval from the Chief Master Sergeant of the Air Force that we were allowed to wear black hats with our ABUs.
That's awesome.
Pretty cool.
He got it. Yeah, he understood.
Big time. He was a really sharp guy.
Good for him. Yeah, that's good. It's good that a guy like that can recognize it.
In 2000, I think it would have been in 2008. In 2007 when we first got ABUs, but I have to go back and look. But really, I had to write a package. And I'm sitting there thinking back, this is the Flash and Crest again. So I got to write a package, Air Force Uniform Board, and send it up through the Air Mobility Command and get them to sign it and send it over. It went fast. I mean, it was nice. I think General Sell had did a little prep work for me. And as soon as my email went, it was just, whoever it went to next just forwarded it on automatically. So it went quick. It was pretty cool.
Yeah, if you had the backing of the senior enlisted guy in the Air Force, it probably goes pretty fast.
Without a doubt. Yep. Without a doubt. But
that's awesome.
No, I knew it was time to retire. I did a deputy commander job for a wing. So it was a NATO wing in Kabul, Afghanistan. So Kabul International Airport was actually a NATO air wing at one time. And we trained the Afghanis to run it. Long story, but I was a deputy commander there. Left that job got picked to go to Headquarters Air Mobility Command to be on the Inspector General team. Could not believe my bad luck to get that damn assignment. And of course, again, it turned out to be an absolute godsend. The gentleman that I last worked for, General Jacobson, was a phenomenal leader, and it was really good to get to be his. My last job was as his deputy, and I could have stayed. So as an enlisted, enlisted officer, you have to retire at 30 years, right? So that's kind of your max. Well, as an officer, they don't count your enlisted time. So as far as as a colonel, I could have stayed to 30. Which would have been 38 years total service.
Wow.
My father-in-law had just passed away. My mother-in-law was not doing real well with the whole thing. And, General Jacobson and I would sit around on late at night when we were done with as much as, IG's office was always humming. And so we'd sit and sip scotch in his office for a little bit, talk over the day and what was going on. And, he was asking me where I wanted to go next, and so I think I'm the only colonel I know that has never set foot inside the Pentagon. So I probably ought to do a Pentagon tour. And he laughed. He goes, "Yeah, that's been talked about a lot. How you skated out of that one." And he said, "I've got a really good job for you that I think you'd be perfect for. But I got to ask you, why?"
Yeah.
Why are you, you're never going to get promoted. You can't fly again. Why are you sticking around 2 more years? And I said, actually, that's a really good question. I think family needs us more now than the Air Force needs me. So we decided to go ahead and retire. And it was a fantastic retirement ceremony. My boss did phenomenal by me. I'll send you a picture of the shadow box that he built and paid for. I don't know how much that damn thing cost. But at that point, it became I called it Operation Seek Relevance, because I didn't want another job. But I didn't know what to do. Right. So I've got all the time on my hands now, spending a lot of time with my folks. They're still alive, and helping my mother-in-law, reconnecting with the family, and going to visit the kids and the whole 9 yards. And um, so I just wound up doing different volunteer things that led to a couple of very interesting part-time jobs. I got into flying small unmanned aerial systems, little small drones, in support of Civil Air Patrol, and that got me hired by a company out of Rhode Island to basically travel the world and teach people to do this. So
Nice.
it was wild. I mean, New Zealand, Norway, Canada 2 or 3 times, Germany, and all over the U.S. And primarily, my niche was all the government. So if it was military or government law enforcement, then I was the one that would go and teach them how to fly these things.
Neat.
But that was going well. It was hard. It was a pain because there was days that you're on your feet for 10 hours straight. If you can get everybody through the class on time and graduate within the curriculum period, because that's what the contract is for. And, but the buddy of mine from Baghdad, one of the 3 guys that we stayed in touch with, he hired me away to come represent a friend of his that she owns a company that develops retrofit kits for civilian vehicles. So
Okay.
give us your car, and in 4 hours, you can pull out your iPhone and tell your car to start back out of the driveway, come get you. When you get to where you're going, you can just get out of the car, pull your iPhone up, say park. The car goes and parks itself.
Really?
Well, now she's been doing this for over 10 years. And she's got contracts with Daimler and Volvo and several others. But they really wanted to see if they could break into supporting the DoD to have this autonomy available for vehicles. And think about how many times we drive a vehicle somewhere in the military that it's a waste of time, other than the fact that that truck has to get from point A to point B. How much easier would it be if you could sit there and the K-loader at the warehouse is filled with all the pallets that need to go onto the C5. Oh, okay. Pull out your smartphone and hit the button, and now the K-loader drives itself over to parking spot 12 where the C5 is waiting to load. And, you just reduced your load team down by one person. So
Right.
25% reduction in manpower immediately.
Yeah.
So there's lots of little things like that are, so that's basically what I'm doing now is I consider myself an ambassador. I'm representing one country to another country that does not speak their language. So I'm trying to convert everything into military ease.
Yeah.
As I like to tell everybody, I am the DEI hire of this company. I'm the only one that does not have a PhD. So
Oh yeah.
I am the Cro-Magnon man that does not understand anything when they start talking about all the systems that they use to do this autonomous driving thing. So.
Yeah, but like you said, you're the linchpin between them and the DoD and
Exactly.
knuckle draggers who are going to be using this kind of technology.
So we've already got one small contract that I brought in, and today I'm here in Michigan for a symposium, and today we met some heavy hitters that really seem to like what we're bringing to the fight, and there's a good chance that something better will come soon, but we'll have to wait.
Awesome.
Takes
That's really cool.
Yep.
Yeah, I hadn't even heard of that technology. I mean, I've heard of self-driving vehicles, but nothing like that. I can't. I'm just racking my brain about all the applications you could use for it. Like just so you're not wasting time driving from one place to the other.
So think about it in terms of like breaching. So trying to clear a minefield, or you're trying to breach through an obstacle. Things where that whoever's driving that vehicle is going to get schwacked, right? There's just no way around it, right? So finding a way to be able to send a robot to go do that. And in the age of innovation, there's a general officer named General Rainey in the Army who's coined a phrase that, no blood on first contact with the enemy. So that's our goal, is use innovation and automation so that when we have to engage with an opposing force, there should not be any human blood loss on that first contact with the enemy.
Yeah.
So
I like that.
yeah.
I mean, think about if you had how many routes could have been cleared if you just had like a self-driving vehicle tripping IEDs or, that are on pressure plates or anything,
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
Why do you take a person, put them in a big vehicle and go sweep the runways, right? So you have to have foreign object. All those foreign objects have to be off the runway, or else these fighter jets that, a simple nut or a bolt that's been left out there can destroy that engine. So, you take these big sweepers and they go up and down the runway, sweeping it continuously to make sure that the runway's clear. Our technology has a 2 centimeter accuracy. We can automate a FOD sweeper, and anytime that there's nobody's flying, the guy in the air traffic control tower is going to say, send a sweeper. Hit a button, and the sweeper goes out, runs up and down the runway a couple of times, comes back and parks itself.
Heck, for that matter, you could use it for snow clearing or anything like that.
Yep. Yeah, absolutely.
Huh, that's awesome. Well, I just want to say thanks a lot for coming on. I mean, this was phenomenal. I love the story about the beret. I mean, it was, like I said, it was something that we all take for granted, and it's really cool to hear kind of where the origins of it, where it came from. And I also want to mention, I'd be remiss if I didn't mention it, but Jimmy Felton was my first NCOIC when I got in the military. I'm really familiar with him, and you're right. Everything you said about him is exactly what I experienced. He was very cool, calm, collected.
Yep.
He would, and I was like, Joe Airman, just full of piss and vinegar, and he'd, all right, calm down. He would say the same kind of stuff to me, so I can relate to what you said. But yeah, awesome guy, just a great guy. He was one of those guys, and I'm sure you feel this way, that you just remember there was never anything bad. He never had any bad memories from him. It was always like he was always happy, cool. It was just, man, I learned so much from that dude.
Everything that he did, jumping into Panama, all the stuff that he went through, that's part of our heritage that needs to be captured.
Man, I'd love to talk to him. As just like you, just like everybody I have on here, I want people to hear these stories, because otherwise it gets lost in history and it just goes away. And I don't want these stories to go away. I want these to be captured and available for people.
All right, my friend. Thank you.
All right. Hey, thanks a lot again for coming on. I can't thank you enough. I really appreciate it.
All right. Thanks, JD.
All right, man. Thank you.
Bye.